Do you want to be a part of the CoCo community? Sure, we all do. So join this free weekly live talk show to find out how easy it is to watch at home and learn about your color computer. At the CoCoNation, more than 9 million men and women have participated in the community without setting foot outside their homes. And now at home in your spare time, you can see what's happening, or even join the discussion. Choose from any one of these segments: panel intros, project updates, acquisitions, CoCo thoughts, featured interviews and events, the Game On Challenge, news, Ron's Garage, CoCo commercials, show coverage, panel goodbyes, or you can join one of our extra shows. You can choose from the Game On Challenge Live or CoCo Tech. Join the CoCoNation right now.
Click the link for the free information TJB Chris spoke about. Then decide if you want to watch the CoCoNation Live Show, the world's leading live weekly talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer, its siblings, cousins, and red-headed stepchildren. Visit thecoconation.com. There is no obligation and no salesman will visit you. Visit thecoconation.com.
The CoCoNation show is an unscripted, live, and interactive broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own, and not necessarily those of the CoCoNation show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds are encouraged, and a sense of humor is recommended. Thank you for being a part of the CoCoNation.
Radio Shack? Okay.
What?
The 80s called.
Welcome to the CoCoNation, the world's first live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its hardware cousins.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CoCoNation Show, episode 349. Today we have special guests, Glen Dahlgren. And how's everybody doing today?
Good.
Very good.
Doing CoCo.
That's right.
Huh?
Let's see. We got a panel full today. Let's see.
Not like that.
Starting in the upper left-hand corner, we got David Ladd.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's good to see everybody here, and thank you for joining us this great and wonderful day.
You might want to turn your mic on and not use Ken's or Kevin's.
Oh,
I hope he's not using my mic. That means he's in my basement.
the call my mic inside the basement.
You can't miss him in that optic yellow.
I was going to say I had it both on.
Oh,
All right, next over, yours truly, the button pusher. And next up, Ron Delvaux.
hi. I was wondering, Glenn, how much Mysterium can I put in my coffee?
All of it.
It's a mystery.
And we got Brian, the Music Man, Shoebring.
Welcome, everybody, to the Music Man's Dungeon. On with the show.
Okay, and let's see. Disappearing from sight, we got Sloopy Malibu.
I guess it would help if I turned off the mute. Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to the show.
Okay, and next over, character turn, line feed, we got Frederic Sagard.
Hello, how are you?
Okay, and then Coconut Bob.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show.
Gonna be building anything today?
He's in the
I don't
Matrix.
have anything planned. I might start up another keyboard.
Oh, okay, and
Got some
speaking of
parts.
keyboards, we got Rick Euland.
Where did you find all these people?
And how did they get in?
Okay, then we got L Curtis Boyle
Welcome to the show, everyone.
and Marco.
Hey, y'all, glad to be here.
Hey, we heard you.
A little
And next up, we got Ken Waters.
Howdy, everybody.
Hey.
shirt. Also a little hot.
All the
kinda
weather's
like-
warm here, so
I kind of like that purple one.
it's red.
Well, the one you had it on a couple of weeks ago. Let's see. Terry Steege.
Hi,
everybody.
Welcome to the show. Terry's
the Vader
guy.
Okay. Then we got Retromac UK.
Hi guys, welcome to the show.
And next over, Glen Dahlgren.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Always love to come on.
Yo, Sundog, you.
And let's see, Kevin Holloway.
Hello, everybody.
All right. And the last row, we got Nick Marentes.
Welcome from the land down under.
Aren't you right side up and the rest of us are upside down?
Yeah, the planet's actually upside down. Don't
Where
forget.
I've always wondered, Nick, what exactly is Australia down under?
That's a nickname, Down Under.
And the globes in your schools, are they oriented where Australia's on the top of the globe and North America's on the bottom?
Did you guys invent underoos?
Anyway, now last but not least, we got Jason, CoComan.biz.
Hello, everyone. It's Saturday, unless you're in Australia, and it's time to follow your fun compass right towards the CoCoNation, now featuring 50% more David Ladd.
Where's your drink, man?
All right, well, we managed to get through that set of introductions.
Nice.
All right, let's see. Today, Glenn, you've got some things to show us today, don't you?
Wow, I'm diving right in. That's never been the case.
That's right. We got to keep this thing moving. We all
Sure,
got deadlines
yeah.
today.
Yeah, so
Courtesy for being back 4 times.
Curtis contacted me and asked me if I would enjoy diving into my archives and maybe pulling out some things that could spark some conversation or give you a little insight into my history and Sundog's history. And I said, sure, why not? What could it hurt? Turns out it could hurt me. I went back there, and it is not meant for people to go back there. Things are heavy, and they are under other things, and there's no room to move anything to check. So many bruises later, I came out, and I have some stuff. Now, I'm going to caveat all of this. I get the sneaking suspicion this is going to feel a little like I'm forcing all of you to look at my vacation pictures, because all of the stuff that I kept is stuff that is important to me. I don't know if it's going to be as important to you, but we'll find out. It's, at least CoCo related, and you'll see. I think some of it's actually really, really cool, but I'm looking forward to it. So, but give me a pass on some of the stuff that you don't find so interesting.
What, like 5 drive cables or something?
6. I have 6 drive cables.
Well, there you go.
No, that would be interesting compared to what I'm about to show you. All right, so I'm going to start off with sort of the some of you are going to recognize a lot of this. I think actually part of the fun is going to be seeing how many things you recognize out of what I'm about to show you. So I found sort of my library. These are all the books that I used to make all of my games and everything. And there's more reference here than I remember even having. But I'm just going to show you some stuff. I don't know why I have this one chapter. It's on disk structure. I have this 500 peaks and pokes. I think everyone used this.
Yeah, the William Barden one.
I have 2. I don't know why. And then I have this. It's
Lawrence Sepultz, yeah.
Yeah. And I have
Edwin.
the supplement, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have this.
Yeah,
and
Spectral
I
Associates.
have this.
Oh,
And I have this.
nice.
You have the whole floor.
And then finally I have this. So I used all of that stuff to make my games, and just wanted to see if any of them slipped your guys' view or if you knew them all.
I think I have almost all of them.
That's not surprising, honestly. Okay, I want to take you through a little journey as to how I got into programming. I found stuff that I didn't remember that I had or that existed, but the first thing I did when I was starting to learn BASIC, I loved it so much, and I didn't have a computer. And so I actually typed out my first program on a typewriter. I had no idea if it would work. And one day I actually went into a department store and tried typing this into an Atari. I didn't get too far, but that was my dedication. And this was called Beyond the Silver Pane. I actually did make that, and it worked, but it didn't go very far. And then I have another one. I don't remember this one at all. It's called Dark Star, but I typed it out on a typewriter as well. It's all BASIC, and that was kind of fun. And then now,
quick question for you on that. Like, I actually did the same thing of typing in BASIC programs, but I was during typing class when I was supposed to be typing like home row or whatever. And I was wondering, did you do the same, or did you just do that just because you didn't have a computer?
I did it because I didn't have a computer. I wanted to get it down, and I didn't want to write it out. And I don't know, I guess. And I also used the typewriter to write stories. And so I was there in front of the typewriter.
So you were an author even back then?
Yeah, I mean, I uncovered tons of like early work that I had done that I'm not going to walk you through because
wise man.
That's too far, I think.
Is that before you knew the syntax was different on different computers?
Oh yeah, I had no idea. I was working off of a basic primer that I don't know if what it was specifically targeting, and so yeah, I don't know if it ever worked as typed. I suspect it would not.
Right, we have
So-
similar.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say we have similar backstories. I wrote a program on graph paper
No.
before I ever met a computer, and yeah, interesting.
So I think the first real program that I thought was worthwhile considering was called Demon Cross, and I found the letter that I sent to Color Computer Magazine. It was for a contest of theirs, and it was an adventure game for a 32K extended basic color computer, and I thought I won, but I didn't. Meaning, I thought I won to this day, but I didn't. I actually, and Color Computer Magazine was nice to explain it. They said, we regret to inform you that your entry was not a winner. However, it was a near finalist, which means it would make a great adventure program and would make a wonderful article. So they wanted to purchase it from me. And they did. And they gave me an acceptance form and a check for like $10, I think. I don't know. But that was when I started figuring out maybe I could make software and people might like it. And then I wrote a game called Castle of the Creator, and for the life of me, I could not find it anywhere. I don't know if it's out there, but it's evidently I entered it into a rainbow contest because it has ranked among the top 18 entries. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be the adventure writing contest. Do you know which one it was? The first, second, third, fourth?
It was October 29th, 1984, and it was the second annual adventure contest.
Okay, that's the one I placed in too then.
Oh, nice. So you were in the same magazine as me, I guess.
Yeah, that would have been December 84, Rainbow. They announced the people, the 18 that placed.
Your name and the name of your adventure will be listed in the December issue, along with some comments from the judges about your entry. I'm sure mine placed higher.
I'm sure it did too. My game sucked.
But evidently, after Castle of the Creator, now they claim, which is a little shady, that they get $10. I got $10 for this one, and that serves as compensation, and they took rights to it. So they had the right to publish our adventure in either Rainbow or any compilation. But it did not give them the right to market their program as a separate entity, which means that I took it and I actually submitted it to Prickly Pear Software. And this is my first contract with Prickly Pear Software. I don't remember them ever selling this game. And I'm not surprised. It was not really kind of up to the standards that I would think that you would want in a commercial title. But I signed a contract for them and they had the rights to sell it.
I know Prickly Pear had so much software they were selling that they never advertised it all in Rainbow. Like you'd have to write for their catalog to get a complete list.
That
and
is
Spectral
not true.
did this too. So no,
that is not. Well, I would say they didn't advertise everything, but I don't know that they ever sold it. I think, and one of the things I'm getting to is I have a Prickly Pear Software catalog, and you will not find.
Okay.
You will not find a Castle of the Creator in here. I swear, I think what I did was I said, that's great, but I'd rather do other things for you. And that's when I made a Hall of the King. But before we get off of Castle of the Creator, I want to talk a little bit about where that came from. So Castle of the Creator was originally a D&D adventure. And I actually made that D&D adventure into a tournament adventure that I ran in high school. And I have some of the maps and things from that. So there's a map. I'm actually pretty proud of these, given I was, in high school making these maps. These were kind of fun. And
those are top rate. You could publish those.
I think I actually tried. I might have done Hall of the Mountain King. I sent to TSR to try to get those published, not Castle of the Creator. But this was really fun because we used it as a school district. We used it to battle another school district, like the top rated D&D school district in the area. And so that was fun that I got to run them through my adventure. And then I have the contracts with Prickly Pear for all the other ones that I did with them, including Dragon Blade, Darkmoor Hold, Hall of the King. And I got to say, again, having having that relationship with Prickly Pear. I've said this before, but they were awesome. I loved Prickly Pear. They were the reason that I was able to make Sundog systems pretty much, because I had no risk. They were doing. I was helping them a lot with my software, and if they needed help on any other front. But they were honest. They were upfront, and I loved them. And when it came time for me to go on my own, they wanted nothing but success from me, to the point that they said, "Do you want our company?" I would buy their company, because they actually bought it from somebody else. And I told them, no, I want to do something new. I want to do something fresh, and something a little bit more edgy than Prickly Pear. I loved them, but even so, they gave me their advertising rate, which is kind of amazing, because advertising was kind of, did you make money or did you not make money in the CoCo? It's like, how much was Rainbow charging you? Yeah. And because I got their advertising rate, which I believe was about, for a half page maybe, was like $450 a month. And that I could do. And I can actually make money on that from my dorm room in my college. So I have nothing but love and respect for Prickly Pear. I'm really glad that I'm... What's that?
They were out in Arizona, in Phoenix, or
I
where were they?
believe so. Let me find out. They were in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah, okay.
On Conestoga Avenue.
Did you ever go to Rainbow Fest at all?
Oh yeah. There.
Okay. I went in '84 myself.
Yes, I have some more stuff here from Rainbow Fest. This is a letter that I have on dot matrix that I sent to Tandy, because for some reason I thought that I could sell my stuff through Tandy. And this letter is incredible. I mean, let me show you how long this letter is. It goes through all the reasons they should sell Warrior King in their catalog, including specific code that I was really proud of in the talking about how I used memory inside that game, how much time I spent making it, and I had a contact and they never sold it.
I'm kind of curious. Mark Siegel was in charge of purchasing software for the CoCo at Tandy during that time period. He's actually in the chat, so I'm wondering if he remembers this.
And a bum.
I'm sure I got filed.
Well, yeah, it's a bit of a delay before we'll see the chat, but we'll see what he says.
So just on some of these notes, this pile, I have this, and I swear I think it's the map for Paladin's Legacy, and I don't remember if the author made it for me or if I made it, but or
that was kind of an Ultima style game, wasn't it? If I remember,
it was. Yeah, it was an Ultima style game. Unlike Gates of Delirium, I don't think it was a direct ripoff. He actually made the content himself. And then I have what I thought was just a joy to discover, which is, so remember I mentioned Tom Mortel, and he and I were making the copy protection scheme for Warrior King, and I found the handwritten notes, and if you look closely here, you'll see evil ideas. Tom had a very he loved to mess with people. And so these ideas were all the things we were going to do to you and your playing experience if we found out you had a pirated version of the game. And so cool. You see, can't turn around, can't attack, object equals death, joystick reversal, pause equals worm, palette shift, block map, dick with vector. I'm not entirely sure what that means. IRQ from hell. C flash, E level and chance. I'm not sure what some of the stuff. RTS equals fade in, invincible bad guys, graphic mode from hell, the sound of silence, and never ending. There's a never ending Sovum. I'm not sure. But I mean, we would get you into level 3 before doing some of this stuff. So we never did any of that.
Yeah. tease them on.
But
And then
the brainstorm session was, late night college, all nighter. We are gonna dick with people and have fun doing it.
That's a lot worse than computer wars, where if you tried running something like franchise or something, it would just suddenly rewrite the directory and say buy your own all the way down the screen. Mark B, can you just zoom up Glenn, since he's showing stuff? You don't need me on the screen for this.
Yeah, why are you there?
Hang on. Go up here. Got a couple things going on.
That's cool. Did you actually implement all those, or was that just
no? We implemented none of them.
Oh, okay.
No, the thing we implemented was something that was really straightforward and made sense, which is I think the copy protection scheme was that we wrote a whole track without sectors, and the disk drive would be able to read a certain amount of that, which was more than a sector, but then at the end it would start losing. The data was unreliable. So we would read the whole track in, and that first part of the track would be critical data. It might have been graphics data, it might have been code, I don't remember. And if you didn't have that, then the thing just wouldn't work. So that was what we ended up with.
By the way, you got a response from Mark Siegel, says, I'm glad I never saw that, referring to the letter. So I guess it got turned away even before it got up to him.
That might have been the rough draft. I don't know.
the guy in the
I can't
mailroom.
imagine sending a huge dot matrix letter like that. I mean, there's a forward to the letter.
Glenn, did you ever get many people contacting you trying to ask you about this or that, or whether, anything about any of the programs that you made over the years?
I don't know that I got a lot of, sort of questions and answers from people. I got, there were some people that reached out. I think most people wanted to write for me for Sundog Systems. So I got a lot of submissions.
They thought you were in a 3-story building with secretaries and everything.
I think I told this story once before, but my cousin was a waitress in Seattle, and I don't know what led to this, but she was serving somebody, and they said, somehow I came up. I can't even imagine how that would happen. But she told them who I was, and they said they recognized who I was. They knew Sundog Systems, and they said, why aren't you working for him? Not understanding that I was in my dorm room, copying discs. So,
did you ever get people writing for your adventure games, like asking for tips and tricks? Because I don't think you ever made a hint book. I think Adventure Survivors did a bit.
I did make a hint book.
You did?
A hint book for In Quest of the Star Lord. It was a hint sheet. I don't know if I did that for the other ones. I don't believe I did. But I mean, enough people wanted tips there, and I think I gave a bundle deal at RainbowFest if you can get them both. But yeah, I did that, and it's possible, but I don't remember if people were asking for solutions to my adventures. So
were you ever involved in a local color computer club at all? Probably not.
Yes.
No. Yes.
Yes. I don't remember which. It was Allegheny Color Computer Club. Actually, I ran my own in my high school, and I called it the FACTA because it ended up being I can't remember what it stood for, but it was color computer. And then not enough people showed up for the color computer, so I started adding Commodore and other computers, and so the C's started lining up. And that was kind of fun. But the Allegheny Color Computer Club was real. And I went to a number of meetings, so I never got that involved with them, but I enjoyed showing up occasionally.
Got a couple questions from the chat before you continue.
Sure.
So Mark Siegel was asking, do you remember who your RS contact was? Because it wasn't him.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
And then Tricop 1974 says, what did you use to build graphics, sound, and music for your games?
I used, I want to say, CoCo Max for my graphics. Sound, I can't remember the digitizer that I was using. So I basically, whatever was on the market, I would probably try. And if it worked for me, then I used it. And then we use soundtracks occasionally to test out some stuff, and some of the code from that might end up in another product. So,
and obviously you were using Phantasm later on for the assembler and stuff.
Yes, and I actually have some interesting notes from that as well.
Woohoo!
Yeah. That's what you're looking forward to. So should I move on?
Yep,
With this
please continue.
incredibly fascinating walk down memory lane. So I found a few pamphlets, but so the first is my original Sundog Systems catalog, which
I have that one.
Yeah, I'm hoping I sent it to everybody. There's Sundog Systems. I drew that picture. And let's see.
Yeah, because this is one thing, like if you're going through that, like you've got stuff that we originally sold through Prickly Pear, you've got stuff that was originally sold through Mark Data Products, et cetera, and then you kind of, they were all okay with you just pulling it all back?
Yeah, so I mean, sooner or later, those people either went out of business or I didn't want to do business with them anymore, because the Color Computer really kind of had two tiers. One of which was like Prickly Pear, you know, really above board, everything was cool. They paid their debts in time. And that's who I modeled myself after. And then there were others that were not quite as I don't want to say they didn't pay, but they certainly didn't pay on time. And so I figured it was, and once I had my company, it was definitely better for me to sell my stuff on my own. So yes, I took back all the software that I possibly could to build up my back catalog. And I don't even know if Saguaro was like around at that time. And Mark Data probably was, but as soon as when I signed the contract with Mark Data, I was like, oh, Mark Data, I've made it. I mean, they're one of the bigger companies. And then I saw the ad and I saw that they were going to use the same art for Shock Trooper for my game. And I said, what the hell? They couldn't even make new art for my game. And I asked about that, and whoever was there said, oh, it looks pretty close, you know, it's kind of the same sort of style and everything, right? And I said, what? I said something to the effect of what the hell? And he's like, hey, you know, listen, that's what we got to do. And so then I knew I was not one of the top Mark Data products. I mean, Champion was one of my earlier games, and so I get it, but they were not going to be putting me and pushing my game as much as they were pushing other stuff. I was sort of in their lower tier. So I figured, you know, screw that. I don't need to mess with that anymore. I'm going to just market myself. So, so the other pamphlets I have here, I have this from CoCo Chicago in 1992.
That was the very first CoCo Fest, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't know if I went to it, honestly. I remember
it was run by CoCo Pro, if it is the first one. David Nancy Myers.
Yes, CoCo Pro. There you go. Yeah. And I had a good relationship with CoCo Pro, and they made their bones selling used products, right?
Yeah, they resold a bunch of old stuff from a bunch of companies, including yours.
Right. And so, and he got a lot of crap because of that. A lot of people didn't appreciate him selling used products. And I never gave him crap. In fact, when I contacted him, he was prepared for me to give him crap. And then we ended up becoming friends. And, you know, I was all about supporting him. And I said, listen, I don't really have a problem with you selling it. What I have a problem with is if people are going to come back to me under warranty once that happens. And I don't think anybody ever did. So I didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, he asked me to come to the CoCo Fest a number of times, and I think I was just transitioning between going from college to my first job, and so I was on board for it up until the last moment, and I realized I was going to miss my first day of work if I went to this thing, and so I didn't. So I feel sad that I didn't go, but I started my career, so that's not bad.
Yeah.
So this is something I found from RainbowFest 89, I guess, and I'm thinking that I'm in here somewhere because I saved it. I'm definitely under the, so under the exhibits, there I am, Sundog Systems. Anybody else go to the Somerset 89 RainbowFest?
I did not go to the Somerset. I only went to the Chicago ones, which is where I'd met you a few times back in the late 80s.
So did they do... How many? Actually, I didn't realize that this was not the Chicago one. I went to Somerset, and I went to Somerset because it was East Coast. But I went to both.
Yeah, at one point, Rainbow was doing 4 different shows a year in 4 different cities. So,
wow, I didn't even remember that. That's kind of amazing.
That would have been more early to mid 80s, though.
Well, this was 89. Was that 89?
Yeah, that would have been
Somerset.
one of the last Somersets then, because basically after RainbowFest shut down and CoCoFest started up, we had two. We had CoCoFest in Chicago, and we had the Atlanta CoCoFest,
right,
run by different people, and that was pretty well edited, I think.
Right. All right, ready to move on to a different pile?
Yep.
All right, so this pile is all of the various magazines that I kept for some reason or another. I have a feeling that I'm in them at some point. I don't know why else I would have kept them, but just the different, I didn't realize how many different magazines there were for the Color Computer at one point. So this was, anybody remember Micro News? I don't even remember what it is really.
Don't remember that one.
There's a big head on the back. United Computer Federation. And it's got, it's got this. It's a looks like a fairly homespun thing, but I don't know. I thought maybe someone might recognize it. Dynamic Color News.
That one I do remember.
I maybe I'm in here. I don't know. I have to imagine I am.
At least a review or something, yeah.
Save the Maiden. Yeah, okay. So Dynamic Color News.
Those are all scanned and on the archive. I will mention that.
Okay. Glen's High Color Computer Club.
Yep.
CoCo 123. CoCo Clipboard Magazine.
Yep, I remember that one.
Yeah, and I have two of those. I don't know why. The Wizard's Castle. You remember that?
Oh, faintly. I never had that one, but I remember seeing it.
December 1987. I got to be in here somewhere. I don't know.
Was that one of the adventure game based ones? Like I know there's Adventure Survivors had their own newsletter that they published, and they sometimes did walkthroughs.
This is sponsored by the Carolina Cocoa Nuts Club, and it is subcolumn for questions for the Wizard and Pencil Pals, Wizard's Castle scoreboard. So all kinds of games there. Programmer. I don't know. It's software reviews and hardware reviews, so I don't think it's just about adventures.
Okay.
Dynamic Color News.
Yep.
Anybody remember that?
I do. That one's on the archive as well.
Okay, very good. I'm not sure why I have this. Kelly News.
Oh, Kelly Software Distributors. That was the Canadian distributor of just about everything CoCo. They were based out of Edmonton, Alberta.
Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe this is what I was trying to use to get my my game in there. Gamers Connection.
I do remember it. I didn't subscribe to that one myself, but I remember seeing it at CoCoFest.
So that is me. I remember working with this guy, and actually I wrote a column for this one, and my column was, so you want to be a master. And I talked about how do you start programming for the Color Computer? How do you make games and all that? I was really into it, but they had this art made just for my column. And that's why I kept it. Volume 1, Issue 2. So Gamers Connection, I was all in on that one.
Cool. Do you remember who was in charge of that one? Or
let me see if I can find out. Mark.
That'd be a good interview to get.
What's that?
That would be a good interview to get if we can figure out who did it.
So the editor publisher is Mark Kaiser.
Mark Kaiser. Okay, I don't recognize the name. I
even remember this piece of art. I think maybe the person who did this art was the same one who did the covers. Oh, there I am. The covers for the for Prickly Pear software. And there's so you want to be master, and that's the picture I ended up using for Double Duck. And I wrote it like a story. I wrote the first part like a story, and then I would sort of translate that story into what you need to do. And in this particular section, I tell you all the books you need, which is pretty much that pile of books.
Okay, cool.
And then, of course, we have Rainbow Magazine. And it's a good place to see the inside front cover. And I'm sure that's why I kept it. Well, actually, the reason I kept these, I wish I had, I know I have it somewhere, but I haven't. I had an article in Rainbow. It was for Invisilist. It was a way to take a basic program and use machine language to scramble it so that nobody could read it, and then it would unscramble it and execute it in memory. It was sort of a little copy protection kind of thing. But I'm sure I saved these because they have reviews of some of our games. probably something that I've written. So that's my magazine collection. Yay! I figure you guys are the only ones who would possibly find that interesting.
No, it's cool.
All
Some of
right.
those newsletters I've never seen before. So
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I brought it up. I figured I kind of wanted to see if there was a quiz you on which ones you knew about. All right, so now I have some art from some of the games. I mean, it's mostly art for promoting the games. So I have like this was the actual, mock-up for one of the ads, which turned into this. I think this was the first one I did when I was working for Legend, New for 91. That's when I started. And it's when I came off of the front cover because Lonnie wanted to jack my rates up. And so I finally said, no, I can't do it anymore. This was one of the original colored proofs. I actually have the film. So back then, if you wanted a 4-color ad, you had to make 4 films, and they would combine all that together. Yeah, and I have them, and I can't imagine that they are interested to look at. So I'm not going to bother showing them to you. This was one of the designs I had at a Rainbow Fest.
Okay, yeah.
That's I'm sure that's really interesting. Okay, and so here's some of the stuff from the picture that they shared. So this was the original art for Sinistar. And so there's an interesting story behind the artist who made these for me. Back in fact, I'll start there. Back in Pittsburgh, where I was growing up, I was not even in high school. It must have been in like middle school, whatever, the junior high, I think it was. We were making an RPG, a tabletop RPG called Inquest. Actually, it was called Star-Lord. And then I found out that there was a third-rate Marvel character also named Star-Lord that nobody knew about, but I figured I might as well not just, attract attention myself. So I ended up calling it Inquest of Star-Lord. But I found a guy living literally down the street from me who happened to be an artist. I had no idea how I found him, but he was just a guy, and he drew, and he charged me $50 a picture. And so he drew this for us for the cover of that tabletop RPG. You can see it says Star-Lord. I actually did the font for it. I was really into doing that kind of font at the time. But we ended up putting Inquest of over it. But for $50, that's not bad. Especially for a kid, that's something that I could pull together. And that became the inked version. This is the pencil version. The inked version of this became the cover for Inquest of the Star-Lord, the CoCo game. And I kept going back to him to do all the covers for our titles. So this was Kium Guy. And because he was so cheap, I was like, is that a girl in there? Because that doesn't look like the main character from my game. He's like, yeah, I think it was a girl. I said, oh, all right, whatever. I guess I'll use that. So I think these are films. The last
Glen,
thing to
did
show.
Did he do your Sundog logo?
Yes. And I'm about to show you something along those lines.
Hey, Glenn, that's trendy. Having a girl as your protagonist, that's trendy.
Actually, I have a girl as my protagonist in my latest book. I'll talk about that. So I went to him and I said, once I figured out that I wanted to call the thing Sundog Systems because it was, rainbow, it was color, it was, I liked it. And so I asked him to create a logo, and he gave me, and I found sort of the first cut ideas for those logos, and I wanted to show them to you. These are the first cut logos for Sundog Systems.
Oh, cool. I like the one in the middle too.
Yeah. I looked at that one. I'm like, I'm scared of that. That's not who I want to be. That is not the image I want to portray to my customers.
Yeah, you have a much friendlier dog in your actual animated logo on the games themselves.
Once he showed that to me, I was like, listen, I want to incorporate the rainbow. I want it to be friendly, and yeah, we ended up coming up with this one, which I so much preferred. I love this logo. It turned out really well, but I wanted to show you the scary one that you came up with. And I think the last thing, which should not be the closer, is this. It's a Sundog Systems wristwatch, which I have no idea. I did not remember making it. And then I remembered, yeah, I think I had that. But I also had a bunch of other merch, like hats and some other stuff, maybe some posters. I don't remember. But this is the one I found. So this is what you get to see.
I don't remember the watches. I do remember the hats, because I mean, Diecom
Yeah.
and a few others were selling hats too. So
The hats were everywhere. I gave those out at RainbowFest, I believe. And I don't remember why I made this watch. I'm sure it doesn't work. I don't know if it ever did. But it's fun that it exists, and you guys get to see it.
Cool.
So that's my walk through memory lane. And there's a bunch of other stuff that I discovered about, like, my early days as an author and things like that I'm not going to go into. I actually found a copy, the first printed copy of The Child of Chaos. It's kind of amazing in that nothing in that copy actually ended up in the final book. So I'm going to pause there and take a breath. You guys, is there anything you want to talk about before I launch into book related stuff?
Well,
is there any other questions in the chat there, Mark? I didn't get a chance to keep up.
Yeah, Tricob 1974 asked, Glenn, what inspired the Sundog system name? Or did you answer that? I didn't.
Yeah, so I was trying like hell to come up with a name for the company.
Something that stood out.
Right. Well, I wanted something that was colorful. Something that, you know, and people had taken spectral and rainbow and all of that. And so I think I took a thesaurus and I looked up rainbow. And that was one of the things. And so I looked up what it was, and it wasn't a rainbow, but it was an atmospheric effect.
It was a sun-related.
Yeah, that was sun-related. And the only thing that had used Sundog, I think, was a game. It was a science fiction game for the PC. And so, and Sundog, there were a number of other companies that had systems at the end of it, and that made it sound kind of a little bit more weighty, even though I was just doing games. I could have called it Sundog Games, but I mean, we did eventually do soundtracks and Graph Express. So I wanted something that gave me some flexibility, and Sundog Systems just seemed to roll off the tongue. And so once I had that name, that's when I came up with the logo, and I think I nailed it. I really love that corporate identity for my studio.
And just out of curiosity, I think you're fairly far south now, but when you're back in Pittsburgh, did you ever get a chance to actually see real sundogs? Like we see them up here all the time in the winter.
I just the one picture that somebody posted recently.
Oh, Brian, yeah, Brian Weasler posted one, yeah.
Yeah. Brian, your marketing's getting out of hand, man.
I am pumping all kinds of money into this guy. So I, you know, it's very possible I might have seen one at some point, but
because if you get in a really extreme one, really bright, I've actually seen one with 5, like you get the main sun and 2 on each side, but on the extreme ones, it actually looks like you're on an alien planet with 3 suns in the sky. It's a pretty cool effect.
That's awesome. I'd love to have a picture of that.
The fainter ones kind of look like little round rainbows, basically, you know, do the ice crystals.
Yeah. So the more awesome, the better. That's our company's slogan.
Any questions from the panel for Glenn too before we continue on and talk about his new book and the final chapter of the series?
You mentioned you were at CoCoFest or RainbowFest, I should say, in the first realm. Did you actually have a booth set up? Did you have a sign up and?
Yeah.
And who were you impressed with? That you met at the show.
Yeah. So I probably talked about this in previous visits here, but my first RainbowFest was the most amazing visit ever. I got to meet my icons, and I created relationships that stuck with me forever. I remember meeting both Steve Bjork and Dave Dyes on that trip, and I think both he and his wife to be were dressed up in next gen costumes.
Yep. Yeah, Monique. Yeah,
that was pretty cool. But I ended up going to lunch with both of them because I think they knew each other. And so we went out to lunch, and I remember walking back from the mall where we had lunch, and I found a $20 bill on the ground. I'm like, this is like the best weekend ever. There's just nothing that can go wrong this trip.
This is that Woodfield Mall across the street from the hotel, right? You're talking about?
Man, you retain those facts way better than I do. I just remember that it was a mall, and I think we had lunch. So yeah, I got to know Steve, and I got to know Dave, and those are the people that really impressed me on that trip. And in fact, that relationship with Dave ended up going, far into the future. It affected a lot of what happened in my company. I mean, he ended up writing a game for me, for Sundog. We ended up selling some of Dicom stuff when he stopped being through Rainbow, and the whole fiasco with Lonnie and Rainbow. I definitely have gone through all the intricacies of that controversy here. But I really enjoyed that environment. I really enjoyed the people, and it started me on. I mean, I was always like an entrepreneur. I would set up a little store at the end of my driveway called Egg Shack where I would sell stuff. When I was a little kid. I love doing that kind of stuff. And so being able to go to a conference like that where I had a booth, I was able to sell my stuff. I was in heaven. I love that kind of thing. And I do that now. Actually, I do that almost every weekend now because I do live signings for my book. And so I'm selling myself, and let nobody tell you, it's not really about the book that you're selling. You are selling yourself. And so I give them the whole story behind not only what this book is about, but how it came to be, my story about Piers Anthony, talking about, how the awards, talking about how it could potentially become a TV show or movie. And at the end, I would say majority of the people actually buy either the book or the series. So I'm having a lot of fun with that too.
Yeah, I want to thank you again for being our guest interviewer when Dave Dyes came on too, because you guys had such a good history. There was stuff you asked him I would never have thought of in a million years, even though I did know him fairly well at the beginning. But
that was fantastic. I don't keep in contact with Dave. I used to a lot more, even after the CoCo thing was no longer really relevant for us. But he's a good guy. I was glad to have that opportunity.
Yeah, that was great. So any further questions on the CoCo side of things before we get into books from the panel or from the chat? Going once, going twice.
You can even see my ad.
Oh yeah, you're the full color version of the Sundog ad.
That's right.
With Sinister in the upper left corner, looks like.
I mean, I gotta say, with the inside front color cover of Rainbow, I never thought of Sundog as some dude. You had secretaries, you had staff.
Yep, some dude. I think that was almost every CoCo company at that point. It was just some dude or some dudes. Very few were. I think it was really weird. I went to at my campus. I found, remember Zebra
Systems?
Yep. Yeah.
The CoCo company. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were on a sort of a different level. They had an office. They were hiring like people, students, and they were making software, and they were doing stuff. They seemed to actually have like, money coming in and out. So I was really impressed with their organization, and I thought it was really fun that they were right in Happy Valley, right at Penn State, so I could go in and chat with them. And so apart from maybe some of the bigger places, and I don't even know how many there were. It was mostly, guys. And like Gimme Soft, you remember Gimme Soft? That was two guys. Yep. And I love those guys. We always, when we went to RainbowFest, he's the one who built my big display, and that big red display where I the pegboard and everything. He built that for me. He was awesome. I loved him.
Did you have a little bit of a learning curve when you used CoCo Max to do stuff? I mean, because you have to be able to make it and manipulate it, I guess, to use it in whatever art you used, right? You had to print it out.
Plus, mouse-driven, programs were pretty new when you first started your CoCo 1 and 2 stuff too. So, I mean, that was not too long after the Mac.
I mean, I'm sure there was, but I'm sure it was so much better than the way I was making graphics before that. And honestly,
graph paper and poke.
I did. I early on, I was doing graph paper, and then I even did some draws, to try to not use up as much memory. But I can't even remember how I made graphics before those programs. And after that, it was a lot easier. I don't think I had any other real experience with graphics programs before CoCo Max. But I was in Penn State for comp sci, and so it's possible, but it really wasn't. That wasn't my focus, and they didn't have a lot of opportunity for that. But they had mice, and they had some other programs that might have been similar. I don't know. I just remember it was a godsend. Thank God someone made that for the color computer, because it helped everybody.
Yeah. Quick question, kind of related along that lines. Like, you found the guy down the street who was actually doing artwork for your covers and stuff. Did you ever consider using him to do computer graphics for some of your stuff, especially later CoCo 3, when you had a lot more colors and stuff to fiddle with? Or was that more of what you want to do yourself?
He was not that kind of guy. And yes, it's something that I would definitely do myself. I had enough talent in that direction that I could make graphics for myself, and I never even considered it. But I did want someone to make something that better than what I could make for the covers. And that's true for my books as well.
There we go. Segue.
Yes, I would never want to make my own cover. And I ended up finding a studio in Ukraine that was awesome. That it gave me exactly what I wanted, and I have never heard a word of complaint about these covers, which is great, because that's your first impression of the books.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will show you as well. I think I gave you the sneak peek last time, but this is the cover for the new. Oh, it's really bright there. Cover for the new book, The Realm of Gods. And I'll just talk a little bit about it. I just finished it last night, meaning I got all the edits back from my editor, her name is Samantha Cook, or Skooky, in the UK. She is amazing. I've never found someone that I work so well with together. I worked with a bunch of editors when I was with a small publisher, small press, and the first one they gave me actually added errors into my manuscript. And so I had to explain, and not just errors, but like categories of errors. So I had to list all the categories of errors. I sent them back to the press, and I said, listen, this person that you have editing my work is worse than worthless. I need to have somebody else. And so they gave me somebody else. And that person I ended up working with for the first book. And then a little bit in the future. She was great, but she wasn't what I needed. She helped me with making sure. She was a really good line editor, good proofreader. But what I needed was someone to give me feedback on the book that I couldn't see, and I couldn't see from outside of my own perspective. And I found her because she did a review of my first book, Child of Chaos, and she loved it, but she had some very specific criticisms. And I find myself, a lot of the time you see this criticism being like, okay, well, it just didn't match up with your taste. But I found myself agreeing with her. I'm like, I would really have liked to have known these things before I had finished the book. And so we had already been in contact. I gave her the book, and she let me know that she was an editor. And so then we were off and running. And she has edited my books ever since. And she gives me, she's great because she has a really good overall view of the series, not just the book, but she gives me, she can look at this thing and say, here's where you're weak and here's where you're strong. And both of those things are really important for me to know, partially because I'm a creative, and you can't just criticize a creative, otherwise they just wither and die. So I need to know, both the good and the bad. But she'll go through and give me a developmental report, and she'll let me know the major issues that I need to shore up. And then she goes through the actual manuscript, provides a lot of suggestions and changes, but then comments. And her comments are great because they're reflective of, not just, I think this needs to be changed for this reason, but it's like she's letting me know how she's feeling through the read. And so I get lots of oh no's and what's going to happen, and here's what I think is going to happen, and on this, and she does 2 reads, and on the second read, and she says, second read, yes, I found out this is exactly what happens. but what I find I find this funny. I don't know if anybody else will, but when I'm going through and I'm making big changes based on her developmental report, and then I'll go through and read all of her comments, and it's like we're having a conversation. It's like she's speaking to me about the book as I'm editing the book. And a lot of the times she'll be remarking on something that I've already changed. And I'll be like, no, it's not like that at all. I don't know what you're talking about. It's completely fixed. Why are you telling me this? Of course, it wasn't that way when she wrote the comment, but in that moment, I'm right. And I've fixed the problem. I can just say resolve. And I feel really good about that. So it's a fun dynamic for me.
Now, you mentioned that she's kind of like knows the whole plot. Did you give her like a rough plot outline of the final book even before, or she just picks it up as you go?
Yeah, she picks it up as a reader, and I would never spoil that for her because she's reading it, not knowing what's going to happen, and that's kind of important. But my point is, she has read the series. She's edited the series. I couldn't really go to another editor on my final book and expect them to understand. I mean, especially on this book, it is the finale. It is the culmination of everything that has come before it. And I don't know about other people, but I leave nothing on the table for this book. I answer all the questions, and there's no way another editor could handle that, or that their feedback would be better than a line editor. So I was really happy to get her feedback on that, and the book is much better. And yesterday, I finished the last comment. I formatted it and I sent out the ARCs, which means that all the people that have signed up for free copies of the book so that they can leave a review on day one, on the launch day, they now actually have copies of this book. And hopefully they will tell me if I missed anything. And I already found out one thing I missed, which is great because I want to get rid of all that stuff before it launches on the 27th of February, which is this month.
Now, is the launch going to be the electronic book launch only at first, or is this the physical launch as well?
Well, the idea is that it's both. So what I'm hoping is I actually have signings around that time. I have one on the 24th. I don't think I'm going to have the physical copy of the books by then. Although by finished the manuscript off yesterday, I'm kind of hoping that I will. And so I need to get the physical book ready for that date, and then have it shipped to me in order so that I can actually have a launch day where I'm releasing the book. It takes about 2 weeks to get those books. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it to have those. But on Amazon, if you order the physical book on Amazon, it'll ship that day because I will make sure that I have the manuscript all and ready. But I do not suggest that because you want a signed copy and you want to get it from me.
Glenn, how dissimilar is creating software and and having a theme through it and these books? And I guess another question that links to it is, will this ever translate to a PC game of some kind? Or
so the act of programming a game and writing a book, I don't think is very similar at all. The act of designing a game and writing a book is very similar. At least, I think that's why I take to it so well. I love sort of walking down the paths, figuring out what the logical route is, figuring out the twist that I can put there. And in design and game design, the truism is always, does this solution solve more problems than it causes? And if it's true, then you go down that path. And the same is pretty much true of plotting things out in a book. And specifically for me, because I am a game designer, I don't know if any of you have read Game of War, which is the prequel, effectively the first book in the series. But the Game of War is an actual game, and it has rules and it has it plays out. I designed that game because I'm a game designer. And then the fun of playing that game in the book is figuring out how the hero subverts the rules in order to come out victorious. And I think it's one of the strongest parts of the book because I bring that sort of sensibility to my writing. And especially in the end of the finale, there's a couple of sections there that I definitely approached as a game designer. And I really, and my editor said, okay, so watch these things about how you're describing these to make sure that they're approachable for everybody. But this is one of the sort of unique elements of your books, and you definitely want to focus on them. So people who either know I'm a game designer or just enjoy that kind of thing will find those elements really fun in the finale.
Now, I know when we talked to you previously on one of your previous books, you were mentioning that you were actually getting some interest on either, as you mentioned earlier, either a movie or a TV adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, on the writing of this final book, were you kind of taking that into consideration and trying to make scenes that would translate well to screen, or did you just write it as a book and not worry about it?
So I think I tend to do that anyway. I want there to be really visually interesting scenes. One person, I'm not going to say who they are, he told me that he would take one of my audiobooks and then just get lit and listen to the audiobooks and watch the movie play out in front of him. So he's enjoying his own movie. He's enjoying the movie before anybody else. That's the way that I write generally. Was I thinking about the possibility of a movie when I wrote a conclusion for the series? Yes. In that, I think if this particular book makes the other books way more relevant. One of the things that my editor told me in reading this book is she says it's her favorite book, by the way. And it makes it ties together all of the elements of the world in a way that enhances everything. As I said, I left nothing on the table. I explain the origin of the gods. I explain how the gifts were created. I explain the relationship between order and chaos. All of that stuff comes out, and it's really amazing. I think people will read this book and go, did you know all of this stuff before you ever started the series? And of course, the answer is no, I did not. In fact, I didn't know that it was going to be a series. When I wrote the first book, I thought it was going to be a standalone. And that's why I blow up the world at the end of the first book. But then I figured out there's something in there that I can use to leverage to continue on. And that thing that enabled me to write the next book enabled me to write everything. And so I'm really proud of this book. I think if someone gets to the end of this book, they'll be like, why isn't there already a movie or a series? And so.
Well, that brings up another question. Like you mentioned that originally the first book was meant to be a standalone.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some other authors that have done that too, where they've written a book not expecting it to be a series, and then like they have some revelation that it's, this definitely can be a series. And they generally tend to then kind of do a rough plot of the rest of the series because they've kind of got this whole background. Did you do the same thing, or were you still going book to book to book, figuring out everything as you went?
Yeah, I was still kind of going book to book to book. So when I had this book, I was like, I need a reader magnet. When I had Child of Chaos, I need a reader magnet to get people into it. And my publisher at the time was going to do a box set of like novellas. And so I figured, okay, I'll write a novella or a short story or a novella for that book. And then I'll eventually use that as a reader magnet to get people into Child of Chaos, never assuming that there would necessarily be a sequel. That novella became Game of War. I no longer had a relationship with that press. And so I released it as a book. Yeah, it turns out I don't know how to write a novella. I know how to write a novel. And so I wrote it as a prequel because I blew up the world. But I really liked that world, and I really wanted to keep playing around with it. And that's why I wrote Game of War. But once I had Game of War, a lot of the thinking that I put into that book came from the thinking that I had been doing in the back of my mind about where could this world go? And I created a lot of elements that I leveraged in order to make future progress, in order to make House of Prophecy. So it all kind of worked out, but that's the reason I went backward, is because I didn't really think that I was going to make this into a series, and it ended up turning into a series of 4 books.
Okay. And speaking of series of 4 books, we talked in the pre-show that you're definitely thinking about doing it a whole box set type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also I wanted to get an update from you on the audiobooks status of this, because you have done audiobooks and you read them yourself.
Yes, I narrate them myself, and the reason I do that is it's because I was an audio director for my games, and so I directed all the audio for all my games, all the voice work, and I actually did acting, and I actually had a big part in a couple of my games. So that's because of my theater background. I would kick myself if I didn't narrate my own books. And for those who don't know, I was really nervous about that the first time I did an audiobook. I actually put up for auditions. I got a bunch of auditions. I listened to them and I said, I can do that. And in fact, I can do it better.
I remember you mentioning that on your first interview with us when the first book was coming
right.
out.
Yeah. And I can do it better because I know the material really well. And so I did a version of my audition. I sent it out to the people I trusted. I said, who had never heard me before. And I said, choose the best one. And most of them chose me. And so at that point I said, okay, I have to go all in. I have to do it. I would kick myself if not. And I'm all about ROI. I don't want to have to pay anybody if I don't have to. So I did it myself, and I'm really happy. Not only because I think the quality of the work is there, but because it ended up being a big part of my editing process. So like I told you yesterday, I finished the edits, I put the arcs together, and I'm sending them out. But a huge part of my editing process is listen to myself reading the book and then find any errors that slip through. And so I will do that. I'll mark down little notes as I'm recording, and that will become the manuscript that I release.
Okay. Now, what is the official, are you doing hardcover and softcover for those who want the physical ones at the same time? Like I know you had some delays with hardcovers previously.
Yeah, part of that was COVID, and I think how it affected my printer, which is Ingram Spark. They really suffered. They took it months to deliver. They have been doing better now. So there's no reason that the hardcover should be significantly delayed from the paperback, except that they still lag my other printer. But as soon as I can, I'm going to get it to them, and they will print it, and I'm going to hope for the best. It probably won't be on launch day for hardcover, but I don't think it'll be significantly longer than that.
Okay. And then as far as the box set, is that something you have made a decision on, or is that something that you're still kind of up in the air about?
So when you say box set, do you mean like a set that actually has a physical box around it?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay, so the idea of a box set is usually there's a graphical representation of a box, but you're buying it like on Amazon and you're getting all the ebooks for like a discounted price. So you get all the books, but you don't get a box.
Yeah, I was thinking more physical, sorry.
Yeah, so as far as a collection, I'll definitely sell the collection at a reduced price on my site. Will there be a physical box around it? I don't know. I think they're really expensive to print for if you don't do like a huge number of them. So I'll probably do a few, and maybe I'll make those like, some
like a deluxe collector's edition or something.
Yeah, it'll be you're going to pay for the box. I mean, there's no way around it. Unless I find a way to make them really cheap, which I don't think I can. So there will be a collection, but will there be a box? That's still that's a question mark.
Okay. And then you've mentioned,
I would
of course,
love one, by the way. I absolutely would love one.
You can make it like that special watch.
Yeah, there's only one in existence. Yeah, sure.
Now you mentioned that you've got some. You've been doing a lot of book signings and stuff recently for your previous books too, and of course in the announcement of the upcoming one. Just so people that can know when and where to go. I'm assuming most of the ones you've got currently signed up for are going to be local to you in the California area. Do you have any plans for doing a wider book tour on this too?
So.
And then also any dates that you've got right now that you can let people know.
Right. So let me actually just bring up my schedule. So here's the deal. San Francisco is a really target-rich area for places that I can go where I will sell a lot of books. And so I used to go to sort of mom and pop stores, but they just didn't have the foot traffic, and it was really demoralizing, both for me and for them, because I just didn't sell any. And I figured that's what signings are about. That's just how they work. But then I did one signing at a Barnes and Noble, and I sold 40 books on that one day. And I'm like, this is different. They have foot traffic. This makes a lot of sense. And so I started going, I did more Barnes and Nobles because once I'd had a really successful one at one of them, they started talking and they let the other Barnes and Nobles know that this is someone you want to bring in. And so I have done a ton in this area, and I don't think I've even hit half of them. There are so many Barnes and Nobles in my within driving distance that I can't. It wouldn't make sense for me to range out of there because I'm not at the stage yet where I have fans coming to see me. I'm going to these places to let people discover me. I'm using that foot traffic and then showing them my work and explaining why they might enjoy it. And that works for me. So I can't imagine that I'll go on a bigger tour unless the books are picked up for a TV or movie, and the talks are still ongoing about that. If that happens, the books will definitely be picked up by a major publisher, and they'll be much more widely available, and I will go anywhere they tell me to go.
Have you considered going to one of the big conventions like a Comic-Con or something along that line to do it, where you don't have to like travel constantly all over the place, but maybe do a couple big hits in a year?
So yes, I've yet to find sort of the convention that I think speaks to exactly what I want to do. I was signed up actually to do Fan X in Salt Lake City because there's a number of authors that are going to have a booth there, and I was going to be one of them, but they jacked the prices up at the last minute here. That plus travel plus shipping all the books and everything, it just didn't make financial sense. And you compare that to like, so the difference between Barnes and Noble and half-price books. Does anyone have half-price books around them?
And I don't up here in Canada.
Yeah,
I do.
So a lot of people don't, but I have 4 near where I live. And half-price books, you would assume they're a used bookstore. Why would you want to sign there? But the truth is, they get the same foot traffic as a Barnes and Noble, and I get to sell directly to the customer, which means I get to keep 100%. Barnes and Noble takes 40% off the top. So it's a lot harder to make money there than it is at a half-price book. So half-price books is my #1 place to go. I've got them all booked for launch month. Every weekend I'm going to a new half-price books, and then I'm going to a ton of Barnes and Noble. I still love them, but it's just a lot harder to make money there. And so I find that if I go to a place like a bookstore where I'm the only person, I'm the only game in town, it's a lot more effective than going to a big show where I am really struggling to get people's attention. And for a big show, I'm paying for whatever space I'm taking. At these bookstores, I'm not. It's free. It's me and a table and go at it. And then at Barnes & Noble, they settle up at the end of the day. And at half-price books, I'm actually selling using my little credit card machine.
So let us know when you're at the half price in Brookfield, Wisconsin.
I will definitely let you know.
Do you have any thoughts about what you're going to do after the series? Are you at all interested in writing about the experience of being a programmer coming up, in the early days of computing and stuff like that, or do you want to stick with the?
Or would you rather be a serialist?
Yeah.
Well, so you're talking about doing an autobiography? I don't know that I've
not
done...
so much that, because
well, I think he's meaning more of a state of the industry type thing. Like when you were coming up, that's when PC games started to really take off and it become studios as opposed to like, mom and pop or some kid in his basement type thing.
Well, and you happen to pick the color computer, which wasn't, like an Apple or something else. And it's like an underdog thing and where you wound up. I mean, and it could be even, I have no idea, how a book is brought about as far as the thought process and all, but you have your life and you can fictionalize it, I guess, and make it even better than having a new Corvette or something that you won from all your sales, like some of us enjoy Ferraris, maybe.
So the exploration that I've done on my life, I've normally done it in terms of writing sort of behind the scenes stories about how games got made, because they're always disasters. and then it's a matter of trying to figure out how to salvage the disaster and ship something that's worth shipping. And I've put a lot of those on my blog site. I can't. It's possible that those things could combine to become a book, but I don't think it would necessarily reach a big enough audience that would make it worthwhile. Talking about the color computer, honestly, I love this environment to talk about the color computer, but I can't really imagine writing it to a sort of a larger audience. And that process is a very different process in my mind than coming up with a creative story, world, all of that. And that's really what motivates me. It's not really, the idea of turning that into a business, and selling books and making TV shows and movies and all of that is great. I love that process too, but I love the creative part of it the most. It's the reason I do it. It's the reason I was making games. It wasn't really to make money making games, but I was happy to be able to do that. I love coming up with it all. And I'm, young enough that I can keep doing that for a while, regardless of, if anyone's paying me for it. So I think that's probably where I'll stick. Now, the larger question, which is the one I'm wrestling with, is what am I going to do after this? Because this is the finale to the series. I love this world. I love these characters. I would love to continue working with them in some way. Does that mean making a new series after this one? Maybe. Does that mean like going back and giving Dantes a couple of more books in his series? Because he's theoretically in the prequel, which is not the actual core trilogy. Maybe. But I don't know. I kind of want to see how people feel about the book I'm releasing now. Because I don't want to keep releasing books that force you to read other books unless there are enough people reading those books. So I'm kind of interested in maybe I'll focus on marketing for a little bit, but I'm sure my fingers will start itching and get to a typewriter at some point.
Do you have any other non-related to the Chaos series that you've got kind of percolating that you might do as a future thing? Anything else that's been floating around your head as far as writing?
Yeah, I had another book that I was seriously considering doing that came out of a project where I was working with a designer who was having sort of creative blocks about his main character. And so I constructed this, I couldn't help it. I just constructed this world and some new characters that I actually really liked. And then thought, and I asked him at the end, he didn't use a lot of what I was proposing because I was going in different directions than he wanted to with his project. And so I said, well, can I take this and make this into something else? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. It's all yours. So I put that on the back burner for a long time. I might come back to it, but it's not my first love. This world, these characters, it's where I want to be if I can make money being there, because it's so fulfilling. And if you read the finale, I think you'll understand why, and you'll understand sort of how deep that rabbit hole goes for this world.
Okay. Retro Mac UK, if you're able to come by the mic there, I know you posted a question in the chat here. I thought you might as well ask it in person.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask, obviously, about the potential of a worldwide tour with the book and your thoughts around a film company maybe picking it up for a possible movie franchise, and how you would feel about possibly maybe directing alongside that.
Wow. There's a lot of ifs in there.
Jumping in.
Here on the CoCoNation, we're notorious for feature creep.
Yep, there's some feature creep.
So let me take that one step at a time. And I know I've discussed this a little bit here before, but the first thing is, so I made a little game called The Wheel of Time, and it was based on the Robert Jordan books of the same name. Those books became a TV series, and it's actually done reasonably well. When I was on a podcast for the Wheel of Time game, there was someone listening to that, and it was the executive producer of the Wheel of Time TV series. He contacted me, and together we relaunched the game to coincide with the launch of the series. But in so doing, he's now evaluating my books for potential TV series or movie. So that is my first contact that could potentially cause something. On top of that, my ex-boss from Legend, which is where I made most of my games that were post CoCo, he is now head of games at Netflix. And so he is shopping my books at Netflix. So you never know. I have 2 channels that could possibly make something happen, and both of them are equally as viable as they've ever been. Both of them, I think we're kind of waiting to see the finale. They wanted the complete series in order to be able to pitch that as a series.
Yeah.
So either things won't happen now, or they will happen now that the final book is done. But I have possibilities. Now, if something does happen, that opens up a lot of doors, but I don't think the door that it opens is me directing it. That happened with Wing Commander. Chris Roberts got his chance to direct a movie based on his game, and it sucked. So I think they would want people, and I would want people who are really, really good and experienced at that to take the helm. And so, and I know, being the writer, you have only so much influence over the end product. You need a showrunner that is going to hopefully share your vision, but not always share your vision. And I think, I've been making products for most of my life. I understand the trade-offs. I would rather have a product than have no product. And I will try my damnedest to make sure that that product is as high quality as possible. But I know if something happens, I will only have so much to say about that.
Because
So
things like these series tend to get picked up, eventually, and then you have the films, and then eventually it becomes like game development. There's future like titles to come out on PC and different other platforms. So it'd be interesting to see where this goes. It's quite exciting.
And I would actually be way more interested in being very involved in any game development that happened based on my books, because I have way more experience. I could be more valuable along those lines. So yes, I have theater background. I have, voice direction background, but I'm not going to screw up a TV series. Don't put me in a position where I could screw it up. But I know that if I get involved in game development, I'm going to be way more valuable in that role. So I hope it all happens. That would be really cool if it does. And fingers crossed, maybe something will.
So if it did get into the TV or movie series type thing, would you want any position at all within the strata of making the movie, or would you just be a consultant as of the writer of the book?
I will take any position they give me. My point is, I'm never going to get in the way of making that happen. I'm not going to be the troublesome writer who is holding up the contract and saying
you're not going to be the Harlan Ellison of the.
Yeah, I'm way too pragmatic for that.
Because some people like to get involved, like creatively.
I would love to be involved creatively. I mean, obviously, it's the reason I did my own audiobooks. I understand the material better than anybody. Of course, I do.
And not only that, you have an obligation to protect the legacy of the books as well.
And that's true. That is actually very true. I don't want somebody else's failed attempt to undermine my own brand. And so I'm very interested in doing that. What I'm not interested in doing is making it hard to make this process move forward. So yes, I will be as involved as I can possibly be if that ever happens. It's a big dice roll as to whether or not that would actually happen. But part of the challenge is knowing the right people, and I hope I do. So we'll see how it goes.
And as you mentioned, you got 2 opportunities there that are possible. So you're stacking the odds a bit in your favor there.
That's right. And believe me, that's my closer when I pitch. And the end of my pitch at all these places is, you happen to walk into this half-price books on this day where I'm signing first edition copies of these books before they blow up. And that usually gets them.
Now, how far away, we haven't got to, you're mentioning specific dates and stuff here, but how far away? Are you just staying strictly in the San Francisco area? Are you going a little bit throughout California, et cetera?
No, I am. I mean, like I said, the area around the Bay Area is so target rich. It doesn't make sense for me to drive more than like an hour. And I would love to go on a bigger tour, but it would have to be like, big events that would take me outside of this area. Otherwise, if it's me just going to a store, I can just go to any store in my area and get the same kind of experience. I can even do that multiple times, which I do. I've gone back to these a number of times because it's all new people every time I go. And so just to let you know, February 24th, I'm going to be at the Walnut Creek Barnes & Noble. March 9th, I'm at the Berkeley Half Price Books. March 16th, I'm at the Concord Half Price Books. March 23rd, these are all Saturdays, by the way, I'm at the Dublin Half Price Books. Dublin, they love me there. She told me I can come anytime I want. She wanted me before the launch. She wanted me after the launch. She just wants to keep me coming back. And I can't, there's nothing better than Half Price Books. On March 30th, I'm at the Concord Barnes & Noble, and that's kind of my official Barnes & Noble launch party. On April 13th, I'm at the Fremont Half Price Books. On April 24th, I'm at the Barnes & Noble El Cerrito. And May 11th, I'm at the Barnes & Noble Fairfield. And on July 6th, I'm at the Santa Rosa Barnes & Noble. There's 2 Barnes & Nobles that are opening, and they've invited me to their grand opening. And one is in San Bruno, and the other is in Antioch. So those aren't on my calendar yet because I don't know what the dates are. But you see, even locally, my schedule's packed. It's like I can't travel for a big thing unless I know the impact is going to be huge. And I don't see that yet.
And that's where if you can find a convention that would fit you properly, that would be a good one to go to if you wanted to venture beyond the San Francisco area.
And again, I had dreams of doing that exact same thing. And then I found that I got the same experience, but just being the only guy there, where everybody who comes in through the front door, I'm right there at the front door. I'm pitching my books. I sell between 40 and 90 books every Saturday. I go to one of these things. So I don't know how I would match that going somewhere else.
Well, you know, it sounds like May 4th and 5th is open on your calendar.
You could probably sell a few books there too. I would mention that. Yeah.
I don't
Maybe some of your Sundog collection too while you're at it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That would be a trip. Where is that again?
Carroll Stream near Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a trek.
It's not too far actually from where the old Hyatt Regency that you were familiar with is actually.
But I was going from a very different place at that point.
Yeah.
It's not that far by airplane.
We'll even pick you up at the airport. You can save yourself a cab ride.
Nice. How can I refuse that?
And there'll be some beverages at the show. Some
you're just
CoCo
it's impossible to say no.
Yeah.
There's going to be coffee there.
I'm seeing with this tour here that there's probably not a very large chance that we will see you at the Half Price Books in Bethel Park.
I mean, not anytime soon, I'm afraid. And don't get me wrong. I mean, as far as the CoCo show goes, every year you guys do it and I'm not there, I feel it. I mean, I would love to be there. It's really difficult for me to make that happen.
Yeah, I will mention it's still growing. Like Grant, I was hoping he was going to be here to announce it, but I took a look at the site the site that actually has the tables and who's reserved them. The entire hall is now sold out. We've now got tables out in the hallway.
That's fantastic. I mean, you mentioned that last time I was here that it was filling up. That's phenomenal. I love hearing that. And
all the ones in the main hall are sold out as of when I checked this morning. So now it's we've got an additional, I think, 11 tables outside that are now open they're going to be in the hallways.
That's spectacular. One of these days, I'm going to be there.
And we'll make you a triptych from the CoCo Fest back to your place with all the Half Price books in between highlighted. In Canadian miles, it's a short drive back. So
yeah, shipping books is not easy, by the way. Yep. Shipping books is very heavy.
But just get a big tour bus and that type of thing.
When it's a movie, that's where you'll find me on my tour bus.
Cool. I don't have any other questions, but it sounds like you have a lot of the dates. Are those dates posted up somewhere that people can kind of catch up?
Again, Mysterium.blog is your one-stop shop for all this stuff. Just make sure you click on all the links. So this one is events. It has my calendar of upcoming events and also has my old events, see where I've been. But the big ones there are store and also subscribe. I just recently got on Substack because my old newsletter, they tried to rake me over the coals for sending things out, and they wanted money, like a lot of money every month. And Substack is fantastic. I mean, basically there's no subscriber limit and I can send whenever I want to. So I do a monthly newsletter. and it's a lot of fun. So everyone should go to mrim.blog and sign up for the newsletter, and you'll find all the opportunities. And also, FYI, if you have read the books and you don't want to wait for the books to come out in order to get the newest one, and you want a free e-copy right now, you can become an ARC reader. I just sent those out last night, but I can send a few more. All you have to do is commit to reviewing on the day that it releases, which is the 27th. And I'd be glad to send you, if you've read the other books, I mean, it's a finale, so you have to have read the other books. I'd be glad to send you an e-copy of the book.
Cool. And Mark just posted the links to Mr.M.blog and the Big Cartel one in the chat there, so people can look that up there and click on them themselves.
Very cool.
I have a quick question. Do they come out with for e-readers?
Yes.
E-books?
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's available on Amazon, and and the ebooks there are Kindle, but they can go anywhere. And I haven't yet. I haven't made it available anywhere but there, and the reason for that is it's on Kindle Unlimited, which is they have you get a subscription and you get all of those books for free. And if you do that, you cannot sell the ebook anywhere else. So for now, that's
it's exclusive.
That's my deal. And so I might rethink that eventually, but I think it's the way I need to be for right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any further questions from the chat or from the panel? I've asked all the ones I wanted.
I'm not seeing any.
Hey, if you have purchased the books before, the ebooks, you can go now to Amazon and pre-order it. And honestly, if you're not going to get the physical books, I really appreciate those pre-orders because they help in the ratings, the ranking of those books on the first day. Anything that can help get the rankings up in those first couple of weeks is awesome, because those are the things that cause visibility for the book. And I think that's kind of what I'm going to be focused on immediately. I don't know what I'm going to work on, what book the next book is. I'm going to focus on marketing because I don't do it as well as I need to. I need to get those rankings up. So anything you can do, I'd love to get the help and get the word out.
Merchandising.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for being on. Thanks for digging out all that CoCo stuff. I know that was a bit of a pain in the ass.
Pain in everywhere.
It's for exercise, I guess, but
again, thank you for having me. I mean, so you are my people. And I say that not just because you share a really intense interest in the color computer, but, we're all kind of the same generation. And I think that's why the people who have actually purchased my books kind of like them, because we're all sort of have that same mindset. I think that, even though they're sort of YA, 80% of the people who read YA are adults. And I think it can connect with people of our generation. So I actually really appreciate the people who've gone on this journey with me. And I thank you so much for letting me come back on here. It's the one thing I actually really look forward to doing every year when I release a book, is coming here and chatting about it. And not only that, but all the CoCo stuff as well, because it's awesome. Both things are near and dear to my heart. So thank you so much. You're very generous with your time, and I appreciate you having me.
Oh, thanks again for coming on. I see Coconut Bob has actually launched a Sundog system game there. We can see the logo.
The friendly logo. And actually, Tom Mortell is the guy who made that. So we definitely need to get him here.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. We can get him. If you get in contact with him and then just give us a shout here, we'll definitely have him on.
Sure. Oh, it's Sinistar. That's what's going on.
Tom Mortell's blog has a real good description of stack blasting, and I assume the person he's talking about is you.
Yep.
He's talking about optimizing the game.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if that was about Kim Guy or if that was about Warrior King.
That was about Warrior King. Yeah, there were things I could have done to optimize that further, I realize in retrospect. But it did pretty well for my level of of programming at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks very much. If you're a busy guy, you probably don't have time to hang around after the show here. I will mention that one of the news stories is actually covering a game that is currently being written by Jim Mullis using Sundog's GraphXpress.
That's
so
sweet.
he actually released the video. It's running pretty slow right now. Plus, he had a bit of problem with the capture with skipping frames and stuff. But he's working on augmenting it with some ML routines. But so far, it's just purely in basic, and it's a full 16 colors superpowers based on the DC comics. So
I kind of really want to see that.
Okay. And ready for commercial?
Sure.
Hey, Amy. Hey, Taylor. We're watching the CoCoNation show. Yeah, we are. Woo! You should too.
Hello everyone, it's your good buddy, your good pal Amigo Aaron, joined by that dastardly The Brent from ARG Presents.
You're watching CoCoNation.
I feel like that should have been longer.
The CoCoNation show would like to thank the following patrons: Alex Gayer, Brendan Donahue, Brian Walsh, Brian Weasler, Ciaran Anscomb, Coconut Bob, Daddy Burrito, David Ladd, Derek Smithson, Diego BF109, Don Barber, Eric Canales, Glen Hewlett, Graham Wabke, Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Justin Larson, Ken Reichard, Kevin Holloway, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, R. Allen Murphy, Retro Tech Time, Rob Binman, Rocky Hill, Steve Batson, TJB Chris, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom S., and William A. Thing. Thank you so much, patrons.
Welcome to everybody's favorite segment, Who's New to Discord?
B-Brain says, "Hi all, my name is Steve S. I cut my teeth on a Model 1 in grade school. 78? Though our family's first computer was an OG CoCo, 32K Model E. Thus began my multi-year obsession with writing games. Recently picked up a CoCo 3 and an SDC cart, and have been rediscovering a few of my games in the archive. I have a couple of ideas for future CoCo-related projects, so figured I'd join the community here." The previous bios were edited for time. Thanks to Boysen, Glenside Computer Club, Paul Fiscarelli, Tandy Color Computer 3, and the CoCoNation patrons for boosting the server. Please consider joining Discord and visiting the welcome section to read these bios in full and see what the community has to offer. Just go to discord.thecoconation.com.
See you on Discord.
Okay, let's see. Turn this button on here. Rick, you're up.
Oh, okay. Just a. Am I here?
Surprise, you're up.
Okay. Well, I guess just a quick update. My GitHub has been broken for some time and I didn't realize it. So now the code that's there now actually should work and do web server things unless it crashes. No, hey, so it's working again. So the mysterious network error is gone and we can start playing with the real problem of creating HTML pages again. Anyway, that's it. If you've been trying to use my code and it hasn't been working, it works now. Sorry.
Okay.
Which
but it's all
URL?
better. Oh, my GitHub.
Yeah, which one?
I didn't think to know it. The www one. And geez.
Is it the CoCo.io one or it's the other one?
Yeah, the CoCo.io. Man, life is so hard. Where's GitHub? GitHub. Get the link. Show me my page. It's saved here. This is ridiculous. I can't get into it right now. I'll have to post it later. The people who are affected know where to go, I guess I could say.
Oh, I found the one 3 hours ago. Okay. CoCo www.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Thank you. I was totally unprepared there.
I check it regularly, but there haven't been any updates. I figured you're just holding out on us.
Well, I didn't realize it was broken, so I left it broken. And then the infamous Mr. Murphy informed me that it was broke, so I fixed it. And now we're to the end of the page bug that we were at before, so we have solved all the regressive bugs and gone back to the current bugs.
All right. Anybody else have any project updates?
I do. My 6309 computer is on the way. I've had issues last week. Half of my program was working and the other half not. I was wondering what is going on. So it turns out that I had 2 address lines inverted in my circuit.
It'll do it.
Yeah, so now coding is a lot better now. It's faster.
It's like trying to program the Apple II graphics screen. That's what it is.
It was
jumping all over.
Exactly. If it's the first 2, then you've just made the big Indian, little Indian.
Yeah. It was really a head scratcher. And I showed Curtis, what's wrong with my code?
And I'm looking at it and going, there's nothing wrong with your code. I can't see why this is crashing.
It's fine, right? So that's just the beauty of software. I mean, hardware design.
Yeah.
That's why I stick with software.
Yeah, everything works and it still doesn't work.
Software has its moments too.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Curtis.
Okay, so this is going to be out of sequence here. I'm just going to show one of the news stories just because Glen's here and I don't want to wait until 5 hours of news have gone by first. But basically, Jim Mullis is working on a Superpowers game, and for those of you familiar with it, that was a toy line for DC Comics. And he's writing this in BASIC using Sundog's Graphic Express system by Jeff Steidel. And this new one here is it's fairly long. I won't play the whole thing. I'll just jump around here. But he's added a bunch of new characters. The scrolling horizontal world that you're going through is now 9 screens long. And he realized it's slow. I mean, it's running a lot better than BASIC by itself would type thing. But he's actually enlisted, I think, was it Paul Fiscarelli? He's done a lot of really cool, sprite machine language demo stuff on the CoCo 3 is actually going to help him write a couple of machine language team to augment a few things that are slowing it down. But I thought I would show a bit of that. So, and now, unfortunately, when he did the capture here, he didn't notice at the time, but none of the audio came through because he does have some audio in there too, but you won't hear it.
Like, not today.
Okay, is that coming through?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not hearing any audio.
Yeah. Now, this is a splash screen that comes built in with Graphic Express, and I think you have to include it if I remember the licensing, Glenn, just to let people know where the engine came from, if I remember.
That's a shame, but okay.
He's also been getting help from Glen Hewlett and Stuart Wiscalvant. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. And I'll just fast forward a bit. So here's kind of the title screen for it. Now, if you guys have ever collected the comics, that was the exact same logo they used for the comics as well. I think it's a little bit of a background for the game here. These are some of the characters you get to pick from. He doesn't have them all enabled at this point, but now it's got the long loading of the entire maps and stuff, so I'll fast forward that part to a little bit of the gameplay.
All the graphics look scanned from something.
Yeah, yeah, I think he did digitize a few pictures and photos and stuff. The character stuff are well drawn. It's running, like I said, a bit slow, and that's where he's getting some help from I was probably going to end up using like compiled sprites or something. But unlike, say, a get put, if you're doing this purely in basic, it's not, well, one, it's faster than that would be, but it's also doing proper background masking. So it's not like wiping out these big rectangles. But he's got a whole like cityscape and a park and stuff. Now, one part I will fast forward here, and that's probably about it I'll do for this one. He's got one interesting building that pops up.
It's almost a strategy game.
Yeah, this speed it is.
Stick it on an emulator, crank it up to 89 megahertz.
Yeah, Gimme X would help here for sure.
Is this like the turn-based Frogger?
But you can see the background, the one building that's starting to scroll onto the screen here.
Oh, so this is historical
then. Yeah. Little heat vision blasts that Superman sends out and stuff too. But I know when he's been talking, that it sounds like they're going to be able to speed up quite a bit of this, by quite a lot actually. So.
How will they be able to speed it up?
Oh, well, right now it's using like it's GrabExpress is a little add-on for basic, and basic just for setting up variables and stuff is like dog slow.
Okay.
So they're going to be doing some direct ML routines for some of the stuff that's really speed critical, and that'll really help passing parameters back and forth and stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of show that because that's actually something using the GrabExpress, which Glen actually sold through Sundog. So.
It's really fun.
Yeah. I know it runs a bit smoother. He was getting like skip frames and stuff trying to do the capture, and it somehow didn't capture the sound at all. So it actually does play a bit faster and smoother in real life than it does in this video, which he apologized for. But I just want to sneak that in there. So the characters are fairly well drawn. The backgrounds, as you noticed, are digitized type thing, though I think he mentioned he's going to do a little bit more cleanup. I know some of the bushes and stuff actually look quite good on them, so I think he's already started that process. But yeah, he's creating a whole world, and he's going to have a whole fleet of enemies and a whole fleet of heroes and stuff. It's kind of like Champion, actually. It's kind of like a sequel to that almost.
Yeah. I actually think I am gonna run. I really appreciate you showing that to me. It looks like a lot of fun. I will say I just set up the discount code. So CoCoNation is now a coupon you can use on the finale. And if you get the other books, it's 15% off anyway. I already have a little discount for that. So come on over to mysterium.blog, take a look at the books, and I will see you guys all later.
Thanks again for coming by, Glenn.
All right. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Okay, next up, game on results. Take a sip of coffee there, Ken, and unmute yourself.
Are you ready, Sloopy? You got to give the game on results now.
All right, here's the intro.
Welcome everybody to the CoCoNation Game On Challenge of the Week results video. This week we played Time Fighter. We had a total of 16 scores submitted. The first one was from Coconut Bob with a score of 11,018. Unfortunately, I think he made a mistake and this wasn't the proper game. Mostly because the end screen looked different, and I don't think there's a way you can get a score that ends in 18. If I am wrong about this, I apologize. And then we had Marco with 1,200, Mark B with 1,400, Henry III 2,400, Ed Rhodes 2,500, Pedro Pena 2,600, Sloopy Malibu 4,200, Mr. Dave 6309, 5200. Tied for 7th, we had Canadian Retro Things and Jim Bry with 6200. Sabhead 6600. L Curtis Boyle 10,400. Shenley and Tasman tied for 3rd with 10,700. Second was Brian Walsh with 27,500. And this week's number 1 score goes to Dr. Ted with 33,800. Thanks everybody that played. We'll see you again next week.
And the CoCoNation salutes Dr. Ted. Salute.
Yeehaw! All right, so Time Fighter. I did manage to find a couple of reviews of this game. The first one is from Rainbow, March of 1984. And they basically just say it's challenging, contains great graphics and sound, holds your interest even after a couple of dozen run-throughs. The game had a lot of professional expertise that went into it, so expect to have a good time improving your skills during the many attempts that you're going to have playing this game. And basically the reviewer at the end says that he knows that you will consider this program one of the best in your library of computer games. It's a real gem. So he really liked it. The other one was from, another magazine that I can't see what it's from
Computer
right now.
Magazine.
Yeah, that's the one. Little short write-up about it on here. And basically, game that gets the most out of your color computer. It's fast. Graphics are well done. Complaint that the joystick control is a little bit sluggish at times. But the game is a winner. Not a game to be easily mastered and then put away on the top shelf in the closet. So both of them basically say that this game has a lot of replayability, which is a good thing for a game.
Yeah, and I think our 2 highest score winners actually made it to the final boss too, didn't they?
I think so, yeah. I never even got close, so.
Yes, replayability and challenging are 2 words you could certainly use to describe this game.
They don't
Brian
sound
Walsh
like
in the
the
chat
two-
says his word is infuriating. That's what he calls it.
Hey, it wasn't the most infuriating game we played in the last few weeks.
No, not even close.
Not even the last 2 weeks.
It's hard.
So-
I will give you that. But that's
Sloopy, I was going to say that doesn't sound like the 2 words you'd use to describe it.
Let's just say they'd be on the list, but nowhere near the top.
Many more words.
There's that thesaurus again we need.
In that top 10,000, right?
I would say the words that I'm thinking, but I don't think they're allowed.
No, please don't.
Now we're a family show, Sloopy.
Well, then we should be playing family games.
I know 2 people made it to the boss. I made it to just
Yeah.
about made it to the 3rd time period. I was within a couple ships.
And a stop clock is right twice a day also.
Wasn't that bad. I mean, I could name a lot worse games that have come out of Australia recently.
It's a good game.
There,
Yes,
see, he's
exactly.
come
It
around
is
now.
a
He said
good
it's a good game now. So
There. So good. It's a good game.
Jumping Joey is a good game. Yes.
it's a hard game. I will give you that. Time Fighter is a hard game. Once you
It
kind
is.
of get used to it, though, it's not too bad. There's little tips and techniques you can use.
Yeah. So for example, Curtis, what are some tips and tricks that you can use in this game to get a better score?
Okay, so on the first level with the dragons flying at you, basically the dragons will usually shoot only one shot. They won't shoot a second one. So if you get them to shoot a shot right off the bat and then just wait for the bullet to go by, then you just move over and kill them. So basically, if you just time it and don't try to get them as soon as they appear on the screen, because then they might block the shot with another shot, and if you're too busy trying to dodge, you'll end up missing them entirely, not even shoot them. On the radar screen where you're sending out the radar beams, remember you have to go back to the middle. I saw quite a few players were not doing that. They'd get the first one to go, and then they'd never do it again, and they would be able to see when the ships are coming down. But you can get a couple of beams out. In fact, if you go up near the top, you can actually get the beam to go out, fairly rapid fire, so you really know what's coming down, which makes it a bit easier as well. The blue balls of death, or the mines, I think is what they call them, the instructions. On the second time period, that one you kind of have to lure it to one side and then kind of go diagonally to the other direction, down briefly, and then up so you can go around it type thing, as long as there's no planes beside you. The timing with the planes is the hard part there, but you can actually basically dodge it fairly easy once you kind of get used to it. And once again, this as far as shooting the planes themselves, it's similar to the dragons. You wait till they do their first shot, then you can get in and kill them. And I can't give you any tips on the later stuff because I didn't get back onto those. I have in the past. I just wasn't able to do it this week. The refueling one, basically just go up near the top, and as soon as you get inside the ship, just let go of the joystick, like center it, and then it'll push you down. And you just wait till the fuel gets, near the top, then you come down straight and then diagonally out and around. But you have to come up high in the screen to get within it, or you won't have enough time to get out of the docking station and you'll get killed.
Worst docking station ever.
So you had to be in the direct center of the screen for the radar to go up?
Yes.
Oh, I thought I was just running out of fuel and it didn't give me any more.
No, I saw a few players didn't pick up on that, even though we'd mentioned it, I think, the week before. That basically you have to go in the center to shoot the beam up.
Yeah, one thing,
I didn't know that till you mentioned it.
one thing that I did see, that I do recommend is when you're shooting them coming down, don't shoot them center. Shoot them off to the side.
Yeah, like nip them in the wing or whatever, because otherwise their shot will just stop your shot.
Right, and then you don't have to worry about their shot stopping your shot. I mean, you still have to worry about it hitting you, but you don't have to worry about it stopping your shot, because their shots seem to be much more powerful than yours.
And also pick your shots because you've got a limited number of bullets.
Yes. Then it becomes a dodge-a-thon until you can get up to the refueling.
Not even the refueling. You don't get any extra bullets at the refueling. You have to finish the stage to get more bullets.
Oh, right. Which is how many ships you've passed by, not how many you killed.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, if you just want to see stages, just dodge everything and don't shoot a darn thing.
Yeah.
Your score will suck, but.
Well, actually, if you do that and then hurry up to get to like the second and third stage and then start shooting, each one of those is worth significantly more points.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but you start you don't get any extra bullets for having them left over at the end of the first stage. So there's no reason not to use up all your bullets in the first stage.
Yeah. But you're going to be putting yourself in harm's way trying to shoot them.
Yeah, that's where I use where I kind of get in the rhythm where you let them shoot, and as soon as their bullet passes your vertical position, jam over and shoot them. And you just kind of like pick off the ones that you can get to quickly and ignore the other ones type thing. But then you almost never run the risk of getting hit unless you get two right beside each other, fire, fairly close to each other time-wise.
Yeah, I would just like stay off to the side of them and then like just move over just under the wing, shoot, and then come back out. And that seemed to be pretty effective.
I just died.
I do remember when I first saw the ad for it, I thought, this sounds like Time Pilot. I love Time Pilot. And then when you get the game, it's nothing like Time Pilot, except for the traveling through time part.
So a fairly difficult game, but it's actually challenging enough that it doesn't frustrate you.
Yep.
Well, I'd say it does frustrate you, but you have to put in the time on this one. This is not one you're going to pick up in like 5 minutes and become an expert. This is one it's going to take you repeated plays.
But it never gets you to the point where you don't think you're going to be able to get a little bit better and a little bit further.
Yeah. And as evidence, like two of the top two scores we had this week actually made it past the third stage onto the boss thing which actually you can see the boss on the intro screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big demon's head, surrounded by these, what was it, force fields or saucers? I can't remember now. I haven't made it down that far since probably the 90s. Brian Walsh in the chat is saying, if you hit all the dragons in the first wave, perfect score, you go directly to the second stage. Otherwise, you have to go through the radar stage. You progress at 3,400 points. So I didn't know that you actually could do a perfect wave and actually skip the night bombing beam thing. That's kind of cool. I never did that back in the day.
I never did that ever.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I didn't even know what you guys were talking about with this radar screen. Never seen it.
Yeah, all those perfect scores you got.
Yeah, I think I knew my hip waiters. It's getting deep in here.
Hey, perfect score on the first level. I didn't say I ever got a perfect score on the second level.
I wonder if that works on the further levels. If you can kill all the planes, you jump straight ahead too and skip the.
Well, continue playing and try to find out for us, Curtis.
I won't have time for the next little while. I'm back to work as soon as the show's over. So
it's going to be a short show.
Well, we have hard out from Mark.
Yeah. So
okay, well then we should move on to the other game of the week that we played, and that was Middle Kingdom, which is a Dungeons and Dragons style game where you have
in real time.
Sort of. I mean, the time doesn't actually make any difference at all in the game. I don't think you get a higher score for finishing it faster or anything like that.
Didn't appear so.
I did notice a few people have won that game already too, so that's definitely easier than Time Fighter.
Yeah, hey, if I manage to do it, everybody can.
My advice: don't play the magician. He sucks.
Yeah, or the merchant.
The merchant's not that bad. I think you actually score more points with the merchant. I haven't beat it yet with the merchant, but
oh, people have completed it, so it's easier than the last 4 or 5 games that we've played.
Yeah. The only one I've completed it with is the warrior, except that I think when I played the merchant, I had almost as many points as I got with the warrior before finishing the game. And I only had 1 ring at the time, so I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this, but maybe I just got lucky in that game, but I think you actually get more points when you kill things.
It's fairly randomized, and I think that's one of the flaws of the game. It's a bit too random in spots. Like you can play a game and you just get incinerated by monsters and you don't do anything good on it. And the next one you can make it all the way through, whether you pick the same character or not. So it's one of those games where the randomness is too weighted in favor of totally random versus some sort of guiding speed of progress in the game type thing.
On the plus side, it's very relaxing to play because you don't really have to do much other than walk around.
Yeah, you basically just steer your character and then you just tap the number keys as to what weapon you want to use and you kind of learn as you go. Yeah. Now, one unique, or not unique, I guess, these days, but fairly unique for the time period was your weapons wear out. And that's not something you saw in very many games at all.
You can break your weapon.
Yeah.
Your spells become less effective after time.
Yeah, so I thought that was a really cool mechanic. I mean, I'm trying to think of any games back in '84 that would have done that.
Yeah, having wear on your weapons is rather interesting, but with your spells, I would think they would get stronger as time went on, because as a wizard, you'd be a stronger wizard, so your spells would be stronger.
Yeah, but you're using up you have basically you're picking up a
magical talisman of some sort or something. Yeah.
Something that can cast a spell, and as time goes on, it gets weaker and weaker.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, either that or the wizard's getting Alzheimer's and he's just getting dumber and dumber remembering his spells. That could be it.
The worst thing about the wizard is that his hand-to-hand combat sucks, and there are a bunch of monsters in that game that are immune to magic. So
yeah,
when you get up against them, they've got like 60 hit points, and you can't hit them with any of your magic spells. So you sit there stabbing at them, doing 1-2 points of damage per time, no matter which weapon you're using, and you start out the fight with like 260 hit points and you end up with 30 at the end of it after fighting one guy.
Just pretend
Yeah.
you're a sewing machine.
You should have the ability to run away from fights.
Now, some people had gone through and discovered like that game was actually released in the Dragon first. I think the Amigos figured that out. And the title screen's a little bit different. And of course, the Dragon being a PAL system didn't have color. So it was designed as a strictly black and white game. They did change some of the graphics coming to the CoCo to, do colored borders for some of the walls and stuff that was not part of the original Dragon game. So some graphics were changed. But apparently the person that programmed it, unless it was a hack screen somebody did, but it looks like it was programmed by somebody in Brazil or something.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that that's one of the notes I had is that the version you have on your website compared to the version that we're playing, the splash screens are different. Because yours doesn't have a author, whereas this one does.
Yeah, and that's why I wasn't sure if that was a hack or if that was a real thing. But one of the guys in the chat actually mentioned that he'd been in contact with the author, and the author remembered writing it and stuff. Was
I don't
details.
know during the chat because I asked him about that, and he said no. I just read the title screen.
Yeah, which like my copy didn't have an author on the title screen; it just said JSoft. But if I remember correctly, this was actually sold in the UK before it made it to the North America. I'll have to double check with Aaron and because they did a bunch of research on it too. But it's one that came from the Dragon to the CoCo rather than the other way around, which is much more common.
Okay.
I can't remember. Is Brazil PAL or did they have some weird special thing? I was just wondering. Maybe that's why it was.
They have a type of PAL.
Type of PAL.
Yeah, you know how you have PAL and PAL A, B, C, D, G.
I think it's PAL M. I think.
Yeah, I think it's PAL M.
It's like
so probably was a bit of an easier conversion to keep the speed consistent.
Yeah,
and I can't remember. Did their PAL M wouldn't have had artifact colors either? Then, right?
No, it's the same PAL. It's the frequency of the channel.
Oh, it's like 60 hertz PAL or something.
No, it's 50 hertz.
Oh, it's 50 hertz.
But it's the
60.
The frequency of the channels is different.
Okay, that's the M part.
Yeah.
No, it was a nice little game. It was a fairly unique one. I remember getting it. I read it back in the day, and I played a fair bit of it when I was younger.
It was an offsite backup copy that you had?
Distributed backup, yes.
Yes.
Our entire club distributed backup. That game was never going to disappear. And we actually purchased, that was one the club purchased, and unfortunately that's one of the tapes that got lost at some point, but we did have the original manual, the original tape for it.
That's why businesses went out of. That's why all these companies went out of business because everyone used off-site backups.
Every club had one.
Yeah.
Hey, all the programs that I had were originals because I didn't know any other CoCo users when I had mine. So
I was the club.
Yeah, exactly.
I did actually, after I started going to RainbowFESTs in '86, I did start buying stuff because then I would meet the people that wrote them and they'd be complaining about piracy, and I kind of felt bad. Remember that time I was working too. I wasn't just a student that had no money. So
I knew one other person that had a CoCo, and he came from a super religious family, so there was no way that there's going to be any off-site backups from him.
Unless say you had a program that adapted the King James Bible or something like that, maybe then.
All right. Well, Sloopy, shall we talk about Thursday night?
Sure, we can run through that real quick.
Okay, I will share a screen with that then.
So Thursday night, obviously, we were playing Time Fighter and Middle Kingdom. And
some guy was playing an Apple game, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah.
No comment.
Nonconformist.
we had a bad apple among us. Sorry, Marco, I couldn't resist.
No problem here.
Fun was had by some. Games were played by all. And it was pretty good. And Sloopy was back to hosting, so the echo is back on.
Yeah, I did point that out when I briefly entered the chat.
And good news, everybody. I found my headset.
Oh, awesome.
Bad news, everybody. I can't find my Bluetooth module for the computer because I had this when I had my old laptop, which had Bluetooth built in. but this computer doesn't have Bluetooth built in. So
Well, guess you had to get a new computer then.
yeah, there we go. I need a new computer.
I heard you can sell a pet for one, maybe.
I have to get them first. I mean, I've been waiting 5 years now, 4.5 years.
Well, they're sitting in my garage if you want to come pick them up.
Okay, short drive.
Yeah. Not to mention, I'm getting 2 of them, so what? I won't have one if I sell them both.
Well, you only need to sell one to get a another computer.
Maybe. So
anyway.
Yep, back to our subject. Yeah, so join us this Thursday where we'll be playing some more Middle Earth.
Middle
Kingdom.
Or Middle Kingdom. One of them things.
There's a difference?
Hopefully I'll be able to complete the game as just like everyone else. And we will also be playing. Oh wait, that hasn't been announced yet. So, what is we playing next?
Well, I've decided that Middle Kingdom was a little bit too easy, so
Oh God, we're going back to the impossible games again.
Does anybody recognize this game?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks familiar.
And it's one that is available on multiple platforms, other computers, but every version of it is different. And then one clue I'll give people here that haven't guessed it yet, it's from Adventure International.
Ooh, Scott Adams.
So are you that little guy that's swimming?
No, you should probably try to save that guy because he just fell out of a ship you killed. He is falling to his death. You're the orange ship.
If you
Wait a minute, you shot down a ship and you're saving the people that you shot down?
Well, no, he was a prisoner on the ship.
Oh, okay.
So
managed to jump out
It is loosely based on Defender, if that's what you're getting at, Frederic.
and scramble.
Yeah, kind of a combo. Now, some of the other versions of this game on other computers are much closer to Defender.
Please tell me you meant scramble, not Scrabble.
I said scramble.
Okay.
I've got a cold though, so just leave me alone.
Sixie got it in the chat. He's the first one.
Ah. So, yep, there it is.
Yes, Scrabble, and you have to spell the words correctly, otherwise you don't make points.
Yeah,
Eliminator from Adventure International.
Now, for those of you that regularly show up at the game playing live on the Game on Challenge Live on Thursdays, if you guys have other emulators, other machines, and you have other copies of Eliminator, because this was on the Atari, this was on the Apple, the Tier City Model 1 and 3, I would love to have you guys come on and play some of those versions too, because you'll see how different. And Adventure International did this a few times, where the same named game by the same company plays quite differently between them. Whereas, say Datasoft most of the time, their games like Megabug and Dung Beetles are pretty well identical gameplay wise. For some reason, Adventure International made them quite different. I don't know if they just basically gave a rough premise to an author and said, here, write a game based on this spec. And they never got to see the other versions because they're quite different.
And also Mark Siegel says it was done by Lexi Adams, not Scott Adams.
Well, actually, Eliminator was done by, who did that one? It wasn't either of the Adams. It was a guy who did other CoCo games too.
Well, let me
it's on my
just
site.
see. There's this, I'm going to look up this L Curtis Boyle site. Just take a look.
See if he knows.
Like he knows anything. That's
Rick
like
Monk, maybe? I'm thinking.
Wikipedia. You can't trust any of the information there.
Eliminator. Brit Monk.
I did get it right.
So it's a CoCo 1, 2, or 3, 32K RAM, disc, or tape.
And joystick. I don't think it is an option for keyboard.
Does it work with the joystick? Because I couldn't get it to work with the joystick when I tried it. I could only get it to work with keyboard.
Oh, maybe, if I had my emulator set up the last time I tried with the joystick mapped to the keyboard, I might just be getting confused.
So
So
it either
66
works
plays
with
the keyboard, so he's right, you're right, and I'm wrong.
Okay. I was going to say it either works with the joystick or the keyboard, one of them.
It works by mind control.
I can guarantee it's either going to work with a joystick or a keyboard. but not both at the same time.
Well, I'd rather a paddle.
Well, then you're going to have a lot of trouble because this one actually is, it's a scrolling game, but you're always moving in one direction and you can move forward, back, up, and down on the screen. The slightly different thing, though, is that when you move up and down, your ship tilts. So that's how you fire up or fire down. You tilt and you fly up.
So that's why it looked like it was crashing into the ground in that first
Yes.
screenshot. Okay.
That's the
And if I
only way
remember
that
too,
you can-
the mountain scrolling is actually multi-level too. Like you can fly between mountain ranges and stuff. If I remember.
I don't know. I didn't crash into the mountains, so I'm not sure.
I don't think you can. I think you can dip down and fly behind and in front of, depending which range it is. I think.
I didn't try that, but the only way that you can shoot the things down the ground is to angle yourself down to shoot them.
Yeah, and then shoot
or
them
I
at
guess
diagonal.
But that's also the way that you get fuel and stuff, just like scramble, not Scrabble, scramble.
Just say Super Cobra. There won't be any confusion.
Okay, Super Scrabble.
Super Scrabble.
It's actually a good game. I remember the graphic effects of the parallax scrolling. I'm pretty sure this is a game I'm thinking of. Is actually fairly well done. And then the fact you can angle your shots is actually kind of cool because a lot of the games like Defender and stuff don't do that. Though it's very loosely based in Defender. In fact, I think one of the first versions of Eliminator, I think it was the Atari 8-bit version, I think, and Sloopy, correct me if I'm wrong if you remember, but I think it was actually advertised as being Defender, like it was going to be an official Defender at one point, and then they end up changing it near the end, but it plays a fair bit differently than the CoCo version does.
I have no idea, but I will find out what it's like on Thursday.
Okay, so this is not a game you're familiar with, never played it on the Atari?
Nope.
I know Nick, who disappeared off the panel here because he knew I was going to ask him a damn question, has played it on the Model 1.
Yeah, because there's like thousands upon thousands of games for the Atari 8-bit. So unless it was a well-known, it's not likely I would know it. Because
Oh, it was Adventure International, so yeah, it should be.
Yeah, it's a fairly
well-known.
major company. I'm surprised you didn't, actually.
well, I had a lot of off-site backups to go through. I had to check every single one of
He
them.
only got up to the D's. He never got to the E's for Eliminator, so.
I had to make sure they all worked, You don't want a bad backup.
Well, it is available. I just found it is available for the Commodore 64. So
You can try that version then. Yeah, I'd like to see some of the other ones. I've seen the Model 1 and I've seen the Atari version play before. I can't remember if I've seen the Apple II or it was just a video. But somebody had the Model 1 on, I think it was Nick actually, that showed me privately what it was like on the Model 1 and 3. Cool. That's
All
actually
right.
not a super hard game. That game's fun. I like that one.
okay, well, I'll try harder next week to find something.
But Brian Walsh did say he thinks it's an excellent idea for Nick Moretti's a blend of Defender and Scrabble.
You got to catch the tiles as they're falling out of the ships.
Quick, triple world score. Quick.
Rearguard almost had that because you had to shoot letters at part of that, and that's another Adventure National game. Anyway, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, correct, Ken?
Yes. What are we talking about?
Yes. When the Game On Challenge live is.
Oh, Game On Challenge. Okay, yeah.
Live.
Yeah, like Ken knows anything about that.
Huh?
Okay, a couple good games to play there. So Middle Kingdom is definitely solvable. It's fairly random, so you might have a bad. If you look like you're having a really bad round, just quit and restart. And Eliminator is just fun arcade action, shoot 'em up, scrolling. Good game to play. I've played it quite a bit when I was younger. I haven't, and it was one I actually got distributed backups of quite a bit later, so I didn't see that one till probably the early 2000s. I don't think I finally found it. I didn't have it back in the day when it was first released. I did have Sea Dragon and some other ones from Adventure International as well, but cool. Okay, so if there's nothing else on the Game On stuff, I guess we'll go ahead. How much time do you have left, Mark, before you have your heart out?
About an hour and a half.
Okay.
You should
So
get
I
through
guess I'll-
half the news then.
Old news, yeah.
Well, I did eliminate one of them already. We don't have to look at the Jim Mullis update. We already did that, so save a bit of time. Anyway, I'll run through the upcoming shows first. Okay, you guys are seeing SoCal VCF?
Yep.
Okay, so that's coming up pretty soon, actually. That's in like 2 weeks in Orange, California at the Hotel Fair Event Center, February 17th to 18th. And they've actually been picking up a lot of exhibitors and speakers here now. So I thought I'd quickly go through that. So speakers-wise, Fujin, of course, and Thomas Cherryholmes will be talking, it sounds like, a little bit about the CoCo version, though he'll be mainly about the Atari, and he has his own booth there if you want to check stuff out, too. Randy Kindig of the Floppy Dates podcast and the Antic podcast is going to be there as well, talking about getting the most enjoyment from vintage computers with modern upgrades, like the CoCo STC. They've added a few other ones here down at the bottom here, too. They got the Blue Sky Rangers and Television Programmers 40th Reunion. That's going to be a cool one. And some other new ones there. And then they've got exhibitors, and that's really filled up. There's a ton of them in here now. There's a couple CoCo ones, so I'll just skip forward. Actually, I think I already got on the other tab here already. Yeah, so this first one here called Exhibit Treasures of the 80s with TRS and Treasures capitalized by Jay Rollins. And I'll just read it out for the audio listeners here. It says, Tandy's family of color computers were groundbreaking players in the home computer revolution in the 1980s. Several models were produced between 1980 and 1991, providing many young programmers and gamers with their first exposure to computing. Come enjoy a hands-on demonstration of some working examples of this family, including a CoCo 2 and a one-of-a-kind, heavily modified MC10. That intrigues me. And then the second one is exhibit for the CoPiCo, Wi-Fi and more for the Tandy Color computer. And this is Thomas Shanks. We're working on a Wi-Fi card for the Tandy Color computer based on the Raspberry Pi Pico W. And we'd like to show off what we've got working so far on our currently bedboard stage prototype. Please come connect with us if you're interested in keeping up with the development or becoming an early alpha tester later this year. So 2 of the exhibitors are actually going to be showing CoCo specifically at the show. So Wayne Campbell, if you're still in the chat, I know that was one show you're going to try to make because you're actually in the area. If you do manage to get out there, please visit these 2 booths and take some pictures and stuff and send them up, or maybe even try to do a live cast if you have the capability on your phone. Next after that is the Interim Computer Festival, hopefully soon to become a VCF, March 23rd to the 24th in Seattle, Washington at Interest Space. And they've got this, as I think we mentioned last week, they got the schedule up now, and they've actually started getting a list of the exhibitors and stuff there too. So it looks like there's some fairly interesting stuff there. This is one I think you said you went to, was it Ken? You went to a year ago, 2 years ago?
6 months ago or so. It was in October.
Oh, okay. Was it that recent? I thought it was longer.
Yeah. Yeah, it was in the fall.
And I know you had fun at that one, so. And Mark, you're still on for going to that one? As far as you know? Cool.
I'm signed.
Did you want to try to do a live feed to that, or did you want to just take pictures and send?
We'll see what the bandwidth is like. As I recall, when Tim Lindner was there, they didn't have good bandwidth.
Okay. Is that a different facility this year, though, isn't it? Or no?
Nope, same place.
Okay.
It appears to be the old admin building for the Rainier Brewing Company.
Oh, free booze. Awesome. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, 40 years ago.
Okay, next up after that is the Indy Classic. And speaking of Randy Kindig, who from Antic and Floppy Days podcast and is a speaker at the VCF SoCal, he's actually one of the organizers for this one here too, because it's right in his hometown in Indianapolis, April 13th to 14th at Crown Plaza. And they haven't quite got stuff for exhibitors up yet, at least not when I last checked. I'll just do a quick check. Yeah, nothing there official yet, but they got a few months yet. 69 days from now, so that's coming up soon as well. And of course, the big one for us this year, the 32nd annual last Chicago CoCo Fest, which is running May the 4th and 5th. May the 4th be with you. I'm still doing Star Trek. At the Holiday Inn and Suites in Carroll Stream. And this one, as I mentioned earlier, we were talking to Glenn during the interview, the entire set of tables that you can rent inside the main hall itself have been completely sold out at this point, and there's 11 tables that will be set up in the hallway. Those are still available, but obviously there's a lot of interest, and I know Brian Weisler is bringing a lot of rare prototypes and early history and stuff about the CoCo dating back to before the CoCo 1 was even released. Thanks to Robert Kilgus, author of Skiing, Dino Wars, Music, Quasar Commander, and a bunch of others. So there's a lot of stuff that has not been seen in public before, or very, very rarely seen in public before. So there's a lot of stuff. And plus everybody else is making a lot of cool software and hardware. We'll see demos of, going online with Rick's hardware. I think Henry Strickland's planning to be out there again, and he helped with the demonstration last year as well. So a lot of cool stuff will be going on. This will be one for the ages, I think. And the fact that the tables have sold out so fast, I think it's going to be the biggest one we've had probably in 15 to 20 years too. And speaking of, there's the official map. And you'll notice red X's on every single table inside. So they're all sold out. And right now it's just the hallway ones here that are available. So that's if you're going to book a table. Now, if we get enough people there, that'll become almost its own mini fest just outside the room there. And there's 2 sets of doors that you can go out coming into the hall. So you'll still be involved with it. Plus the actual main table for getting your badges and stuff to get the shows out in the hall too. So you'll still have other company out there too. And it's fairly open, walking between the two. We had people like Ken and Taylor and Amy, disassembling a Model 100 in the middle of a hallway there. Now they get to do it on the table. So,
right. So are the new tables where the registration auction tables?
I was hoping Grant was going to be here to let me know specifically where.
Because I remember last year, the actual registration was sort of across the hall.
It was over here, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder if the tables are going along that row.
Yeah, because this one up here is like the main thing for the people in the hotel getting back and forth. This is more to an exit, if I remember correctly. So I would guess this one, but I don't know. I was hoping he would be here.
Uh-huh.
But he's lazy. He's almost never on the show. So
yeah, I have to track him down or something.
Next one up after that is BoatFest 3, June 14th to 16th, 2024, the social event space, which is a couple blocks from the venue from the previous 2 years. And this is a general gaming expo that covers retro computers, retro video game systems. There's even a little bit of handheld and pinball in there thrown in for good measure. Of course, it's the amigos, Boat and Aaron and Brent. And they have little contests and imported food from overseas and stuff that people get to try. So it's a lot of fun. And I know there's a few people from the CoCo community going again this year, including Ken and myself and a few others that are planning on popping by as well. It's a lot of fun. If you watch your show, you know what they're like. It's humorous. Next up after that is at the exact same weekend, unfortunately, June 14th, 16th, at the David Gunsley Alumni Center, University of Texas at Dallas, is VCF Southwest. And they are having their show within a show this year. They're going to have a Tandy assembly. So a lot of the Tandy guys will be getting together for a bit of a meetup, kind of like they did in California. It's not like an official theme or anything of the entire show. There's a couple of these little shows within a show there. So they've also got Jeff Wires from Chronological Gaming is one of the speakers this year. I haven't checked to see if we've got any more speakers added on. They just had a couple. So if you're into the video game history of all video games, maybe even handheld electronic games, including a lot of CoCo stuff, there's a bunch of them we'll be covering in the gaming news. But he's kind of going through in chronological order, hence the name of the channel. And that would be really cool. I would have loved to meet him in person if I could have made it this year. I'm going to try to get there next year if I can, and hopefully he'll do another seminar. Or maybe I'll even hop on stage with him. Who knows? And then the last one I got is the Tandy Assembly 2024, September 27th to 29th in Springfield, Ohio, at the Courtyard by Marriott Springfield. And of course, this is for all Tandy machines. This covers like Pocket computers, the Model 100 series, the Tandy 1000 series, CoCo's, Tier Model 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, 16, 16B, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that covers all the computers that Tandy made. And the CoCo, of course, is a big part of that. And they've already got some of their swag on sale if you want to grab T-shirts, et cetera, there. I don't know if they've got exhibitors or speakers up here yet. It's pretty early because the show's quite a few months out. That doesn't look like it so far. Nope, not yet. But, quite a few months out yet. So that's the ones I have listed. If you guys have any others that I'm missing that involve the CoCo, please send them to us at the CoCoNation show, and I'll include them and mention them every week until the actual event happens. That's it for those. So game on news, I guess, next.
Okay.
Okay. So first up, there was an interesting question posed by Darren Ottery, who's actually a bit of a game designer himself from Australia. And his question was for the Facebook CoCo group, just for fun, what would be the one game you would wish to be ported to the CoCo 3? Let's go with ideas that would work on the real hardware. So don't pick anything like, Afterburner that, pretty well wouldn't be possible. His was Ghosts and Goblins, and he posted a screenshot here. Now, I posted my response to this one that I always wish the CoCo had and is quite capable of doing, is Wizard of War. That's a classic, dating from 1980 in the arcade, the same year the CoCo 1 came out. And on CoCo 3, you definitely could do it, even with the voices and, the speech synthesis chip and some of the great sound effects, etc. The colors, they're all there. It's, not super high res, super high color or anything like that. So that would be one I would pick. There's been a bunch of suggestions here that I can go over. I might mention a couple like Double Dragon. Here's one, Oregon Trail, which actually got started but never finished. Hero, Keystone Capers, a bunch of others. I was wondering from the panel and from the people in the chat, what would you guys pick?
Ivan Stewart's Off-Road.
Which one?
Ivan Stewart's Off-Road.
Is that an arcade game or another computer?
Yeah, arcade, kind of like that Sprint GP overhead style, but more of a 3D and colorful graphics.
And you think that would be doable in hardware? I'm not familiar with this game at all, so I have no idea.
I'm not sure. I've kind of contemplated. I kind of think it could do it. Not as good as the arcade. I think it's a 68,000 based. Came a little bit later in the arcades, but I think that a version could be done of the quality of, say, Rampage or something,
Okay. I haven't even heard of that one, so yeah, I'll have to check that out on Clove later. Any other ones from the panel here, especially you game players like Ken and Sloopy?
I would say any of the TSR Gold Box games.
TSR as in the guys who made Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, like Pool of Radiance or any of those games.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Okay. Sloopy?
I would second the Ivan Stewart's Off-Road and Super Sprint.
Well, we do have a Super Sprint clone, but it definitely could be improved. That's Grand Prix Challenge by Dicom.
Yeah.
What the heck? If we're going 3D, we need Doom.
Well, Super Sprint is not 3D.
Yeah, Super Sprint's a top view. It's a sequel to an old black and white Atari game actually called just Sprint. What were they called?
Yeah.
Sprint 6, Sprint 4, Sprint 8, depending on how many players it was.
Right. And then that was basically a top view version of Night Driver.
Yeah. And Super Sprint was like full color. It was actually higher res. It was one of the earlier high res arcade games. But basically, you have multiple cars competing. You pick up wrenches, so you can juice up your car with better brakes and engines, etc. And it's got a whole bunch of tracks. I think the CoCo version's got 20 plus tracks. I think I got photos of most of them on my site as well. But the gameplay in this one on the CoCo 3 version from Dicom is quite slow, and there's very, very little sound effects. He wanted to fit in 120K, but he was also one of his launch titles for the CoCo 3, so he just was starting to learn the hardware. So that wasn't as extravagant as some of his later games, like, say, Sinistar.
Do you see this blasphemy in the chat from TJB Chris?
Let's see. I'd love to see Ghosts and Goblins with speech sound pack.
No, he actually wanted a C64.
No, the one after that.
Oh, well, he shuddered, so that's acceptable.
Okay.
Welcome to the dark side. We have the Sid chip.
Anyway, if you guys are on Facebook, I would definitely go put some responses here because it might actually, inspire some of the people that write the games these days, like Paul Shoemaker and Paul Thayer and Paul Fiscarelli and Nick Morantes and Richard, Kelly, and a few others there to maybe take a stab at some of them. Because some of the, especially if you want like an older classic arcade game, like late 70s, very early 80s, you might even be able to do that in BASIC now. On the CoCo or with Graph Express or something like that, that actually gives you some of the faster routines and sprites and that type of thing. So it'd be interesting to see if somebody could pull some of these off these days. Anyway, a lot of suggestions there too. Like I said, I didn't go through anywhere near all of them. It looks like there's been a few new ones added since I checked earlier this morning. So if you have any suggestions yourself, please go on to that particular post. You can get the post link directly from the show notes that are published on the Discord. Next up, Rick Adams has gone back to revisit Shanghai. Now, based on the original discs, we had found out quite a while ago that the dragon that appears and breathes fire when you win the game had to be greatly truncated because Tandy at the time insisted that it fit on a 16K ROM, not a 32K ROM. And so he's been kind of going through and making the disc version with that, obviously has more room. And he's got the dragon quite a bit bigger, as you can see in the screenshot here. Now, I have seen in Discord, I think since this, he's actually published it even further. He's got almost the entire original dragon on there now. And I think Paul Frescarelli is now joined in on that, thinks he can get the entire dragon plus the title screen. Because I mean, the title screen on the current Shanghai is basically just the word Shanghai and then some sample tiles. The original one actually had the dragon within this big circular, almost Celtic looking surrounding thing.
So you lost your mic there, Curtis.
Yeah, while you plug your mic back in, I have a question. If they changed the graphic to a 2-color graphic halfway down, would there be room for it to fit then?
Sorry, what was that?
The graphic starts as a 4-color graphic. If it changed to a 2-color graphic halfway through the screen, would it then fit? And can that magic be done? It just...
You mean like time and interrupt to switch display modes?
Well, because it's as big as it is because it's 4 colors. But it only
actually
needs
it's
to
more
be...
than that. The flames alone are 6.
Oh, okay, that's already separate. Never mind.
But like I said, since he's actually basing this new version on disc where you don't have 16K or 32K restrictions here, you have 150K. They're working to get the original title screen, etc. I think once they get that all done, I'm going to approach Bill Noble, because who's the one who did the original port of Shanghai for OS9, and then Alan DeCock added in like programmable tile sets and stuff. Is that we might as well incorporate all these things into the Nitrous 9 one too, and include that. Then you'll get the full game as Rick originally wanted to do. But it's cool. It's kind of revisiting the game that he did so long ago, and is getting it back to what he originally envisioned for it. Before he got told, nope, 16K is as much we're going to let you use here because you want to keep the cost of the cartridge down. Next up, Chronological Gaming, which has been going through September of 1982, and now he's doing all the ones that they don't have specific dates, but there's a bunch of CoCo ones in here. And because we do have a hard out here, I'm not going to go through all of them. There's some Dragon ones here too. So I'm just going to rattle off a few, and if you guys want to see any of them in person, just let me know. Most of these, I think most of us are familiar with. The first one here, you can see the title on the screen here. It's called Devil's Triangle, and it's a text adventure game for the Dragon 32 by Abacus Software. And it's just a text adventure, so I'm not going to play any of that because it's kind of boring to watch. And then one that Ken Waters said, just it goes straight to his heart. He just loves this game. Frog Trek. You remember the one, Ken? Are you still here?
Yes, I love that game.
I can hear the sarcasm.
I'd like to. How did he like it?
Oh, I think he liked it far less than you did. It was quite funny watching the chat people, discuss that game as he was trying to play it. I had to explain to him, like, when you're trying to jump on a turtle or whatever, you have to jump below because the hitboxes are off by 4 pixels or whatever. And he was just flabbergasted this ever got released. It's a fun review to watch. Not a fun game to play.
I'll have to check that out. At least some fun will come out of Frog Trek.
Oh yeah.
Somewhere.
And the fact that it only starts scrolling things as you get near them, and then they start scrolling as you get further across, and just. But it was he mentioned this actually. It was one of the first. Well, it was the first Frogger clone on the CoCo. Period. First version of Frogger. And it's one of the earliest out of every home machine at the time. So it was an attempt, I guess. The other one mentioned on this episode is Galactic Attack, the cartridge from Radio Shack, which is kind of a Galaxian, though it adds in the night bombing thing and the fact that the entire swarm can attack you at once in flight. But that's only up to 8 creatures, whereas a regular Galaxian is quite a few more. So I kind of consider it a junior version. Next up, he did one that actually had both the Apple II version Dung Beetles and then immediately followed by Megabug. So for those of you who have not seen both versions here, you can actually see what the difference is. So I'll play a little bit of this because it's just interesting from a historical context. So we're looking at Dung Beetles here on the Apple.
Way better, like the other titles that have taken the Pac-Man maze game and then made it really fun that you want to learn the new way. But this one, it's a little rough going. Okay, we got another one coming this way.
So we're a bit to the CoCo version now.
It's Megabug for the TRS-80 color computer. If you look in the gameplay, that's it. We're playing the same. And there's our cartridge of Megabug.
Went through the entire manual on this one, so we'll skip that.
All right, now are we doing?
Now, the CoCo version seems to be a bit shrunk because we had a little bit less horizontal resolution, and it plays a little bit slower. And I will mention the Apple version does have the We Gotcha and the Kukuracha song in it too. So
you're in. I love that.
They're quite close to each other.
At the arcade, you don't need to mess around with the keyboard. Okay, so now we're in for real.
Now, have any of you guys on the panel? I'm assuming most of us have played Megabug at some point. It was one of the most popular games by Steve. Have any of you played the Apple version or some of the other versions? I think there's also an Atari 8-bit version, and they all had different names for some stupid reason.
I've played it on the Apple. It seemed pretty similar, but I was also using the keyboard, whereas on the CoCo, I was using the joystick.
Yeah, and on both platforms, it actually allows both sets of controls. You can play joystick or keyboard.
Yeah.
They're pretty close to each other. I don't think there's too much of a difference, except that the screen's a bit narrower and it's slightly slower in the CoCo, whereas the speech is a bit easier to understand, etc. So, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other type thing.
I thought it was called Dung Beetles on the Apple II.
It is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And on the Atari, it's called something else again. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Do you remember, Sloopy?
No, I don't.
I'll have to look it up again. But yeah, for some reason, Datasoft took the exact same game and named it differently on every platform.
It might be Tumblebugs.
Yeah, I think that is correct. And I don't know why they did that. That just boggles me. Anyway, that's that episode. Another one here. They had 4 CoCo and Dragon games on this one. So the first one is Microbes, which is actually Spectral Associates took their color meteoroids from 1981 that they sold independently, got it rebranded with Tandy themselves to sell as Microbes in September of 82, and actually changed the gameplay a little bit compared to the original one. And he was quite enamored with the dual joystick control option because there's 3 different modes you can play. You can play keyboard on this too, but there's 2 different modes as far as the joysticks. And it's an Asteroids clone, basically. But it requires 2 joysticks, and so a lot of people kind of go, what the heck do you need 2 joysticks for Asteroids? Well, the thing is, the one joystick controls the flight of the ship, so you aim in the direction. It's analog, so you can go in multiple directions, not just in 8 directions or something like that. The second joystick controls the spin of the gun, so you can actually fire in completely different directions than you're actually flying in. And now that's really hard to do with one person. Myself, when I've tried it, I don't have the coordination to do that type of thing. But if you have 2 players, one's controlling the gun and one's controlling the flight of the ship to dodge asteroids, that's a lot of fun. That's actually something I think we should do at CoCoFest or something, is let people try that if they've never tried that before. We're having one guy's the gunner, one is the actual flight guy, and actually try playing it that way. There's a few CoCo games I think this would actually work out fairly well on, but this is actually one that kind of reminded me of that idea. What do you guys think? Have you guys, first of all, ever played it using the dual joystick control option, or played it with a friend or a brother or something like that?
I
did with my brother.
You get to double up your quarters.
The kind of the idea of Starfighter. You got a navigator and a gunner.
Yeah,
yep.
I like the.
Yeah, pretty much. I find it a lot of fun, and I did like the tweaks they made. I think Tandy did specify a few changes that Spectral had to do from the original Color Meteoroids 2 years earlier, or from a year earlier, and I think they actually did improve it a bit. So, other ones mentioned in this particular episode. Our Mission Empire, which is, if you're familiar with the Galactic Saga, made famous on the Model 1 and the Apple, like Galactic Empire, Galactic Trader, etc. It's kind of based on that. It's a low-res version, but basically the same type of gameplay, where you basically try to conquer the surrounding galaxy and star systems by sending ships and taxing and all kinds of stuff. Offender, which is Greg Zumwalt's one of his earlier machine language games, I think his second one after Pac-Man. It's kind of a defender. There's no mountains. It's actually got little buildings. But you do have, people to rescue, and you do, have all the different types of ships to shoot and stuff. Just straight black and white, though. It's a P mode 4, no artifacting on that one. And the other one is a Racer Ball. I see I spelt that wrong in the notes. Whoops. Which is actually a reskin of Ghost Gobbler from Spectral for the Dragon and for the UK CoCos. And I'm guessing they had to do this because of maybe complaints of copyright by this point. So they reskinned it and tried to make it sound like it's a space game or something, which is just silly for a Pac-Man clone. But show it here for those of you who are not familiar with it.
Hey, if they could do it for Temple of
We're back
Rom,
on
they
the
could do it
TRS
for
80 color
anything.
computer. Here's Racer Ball. Racer Ball is from the United Kingdom. So this one is, you can see it from the box. Racer Ball is the TRS-80 Color computer with a U, released by Microdeal in the United Kingdom, with an example of the screenshot that already gave it away. So this one, I really don't want to play it on this system because we really should do it justice. This is only in the United Kingdom when this came out, and we should be playing on this computer from the United Kingdom. We really should be playing Racer Ball on the Dragon 32. So it's pretty much the same system, the UK formula. So let's check out Racer Ball on the Dragon 32. Starting with the box. Here's the cassette case, Racer Ball.
Now, I know sometimes they
It's
had
something sci-fi.
the little blurb in the corner as to what platform it's for. They used to have the CoCo and the Dragon listed simultaneously, but they actually made separate runs of the artwork here for both. And the original one here, the original first run by Microdeal, is very plain looking.
On the moon base, but avoid enemy laseroids that keep coming in the airlock. And then you flip over the back of the box, or the inside sleeve, I mean. So this is how to load the game and how to play the game. Very nice with a cassette case.
Fast forward a little bit of gameplay itself.
The laseroids will remain scared for a
Had built-in directions, which the Spectral version did not. The Ghost Gobbler one, I should say.
There it is. We're in. I'm going to bring... It's got little...
But same sound effects, same maze. Just basically the Pac-Man and the ghosts have changed into semi-science fictional
like
shapes.
Reskinned Ghost Gobbler. Oh, there
Even the little teleporter tunnel's still in it.
Teleport to the top.
I'm sure 60 has played this one. Okay. Next one, next episode he covered Roman checkers. He was quite impressed because there's been quite a few Othello, reverse Psi, whatever you want to call the game, clones on various machines, but he was very impressed with the interface in this one in particular. Because if you can play with keyboard or joystick, but on the joystick, it actually lets you not only select where you're placing, but it has a little menu on the right of symbols and letters to do various things. And you can actually control everything with the joystick, which had not been done on any of the previous versions on different platforms up to this point. And this is an image producer's game that we talked a little bit about during our interview with the image producers way back in the early history of the show. And if you like that type of game, it's actually quite a well done one. There's multiple skill levels. You can play versus a computer versus human. You can have two computer players play each other if you just want to watch a demo version of the game. It's got some semi-decent sound effects and stuff. You can set up the board if you want to record on paper or something where you left off, and then come back and reset it back up again in case you had to shut the computer off. And it's got a fairly extensive manual. There's quite a bit of stuff to it. It's a fairly extensive version of Othello at the time. I won't play it because Othello's kind of boring to watch. But and then the next one here was Shooting Gallery. This is another one where we did back to back because there's two versions of Shooting Gallery. Now this one here, kept the same name at least, and actually the graphics are fairly close to each other again. There's a little bit of a difference here. So this is the Atari 8-bit version we're looking at here. Sloopy, I'm sure you're familiar with this game. If he's by his mic, apparently not. But basically, this one looks very close. I mean, there's a bit more color on the Atari version because, of course, they had better hardware than we did. Though using some of the extra artifact colors that Erico likes using, the CoCo version actually has more colors than you would normally expect on this type of game too. But I did notice that the shape on the bottom is elephants, and that's not the same as the CoCo. So they did take a little bit of poetic license and do a little bit different here. Other than that, like the ducks, the rabbits, the face, the Atari has a really nice animation on the face where the face actually rotates around. So I'll just unmute the sound here.
Yeah, there were many different shooting gallery type games for the Atari 8-bit.
Yeah, like Clones of Carnival and yeah.
Yeah, the face animation is really good on that.
Yeah, the evil, not evil face.
Yeah, it kind of like rotates around, where ours just blinks in and out. So I'll fast forward to the CoCo one. We both have the same multi-voice music backgrounds for setting it up. But you see here, like if you take a look, like even the curtains and then the diamonds where you get your extra bullets to the top, they're using the cross-hatch technique to get some of the extra colors, the yellows, the purples and stuff we didn't normally see too often in CoCo games. So it's one of the better uses of color. I prefer the analog control myself, having played both versus the digital stick. But I have to say the Atari one plays smoother, and the animation on the face is definitely a big improvement over what we got here, just changing between the two different faces themselves. But I mean, by the time this came out, I mean, the original Carnival in the arcade was what, 79 or 80 or something like that. So this was already an old arcade game by the time the CoCo one came out. Never mind when the game came out. So. And then another one that he showed on this episode, and this has got a bit of controversy to it. I don't know if you guys have seen it because it was only advertised for a slight bit of time, like literally a couple months. And that's, let me see if I wait till he zooms it in here. Snack Pack by Atomic Software. So you can see here, and this only existed in September and October, maybe November of '82, and then it suddenly got yanked. And there's, I think, a good reason for this. Now, unfortunately, I've not been able to contact people directly involved with this to get the full story. But if you guys remember, the very first Pac-Man clone that CoCo ever got was ComputerWare's Pac Attack in early 1981. And that was a Semi-Graphics 24 game. Snack Pack is a reskin version of that in P-Mode 4 with artifacting. So the graphics look a lot better, but the sound routines, the maze is absolutely identical. And ComputerWare, I don't think would have let Tom Mix have the option of giving the artifact color version of their game under a different name with everything else being identical. So I suspect that somebody kind of hacked into the ComputerWare one, reskinned it to look enough different that at first glance you wouldn't tell it's the same game until you actually played it, and the sound effects and everything are identical. And then got Tom Mix to sell it briefly, and then I think ComputerWare came after them and said, "No, you're not selling this because that's our game." And then ComputerWare themselves came out with Pac Attack 2, where they actually did 4-color artifacting and reskinned it too, but they did do a few other changes on top of it. So this game was only on the market for a couple months, literally, and then disappeared forever. So I'm suspecting there was a bit of tomfoolery going around out there.
That's entirely not the copyright strike I would have expected.
Yeah, no, it's a bit of a strange story. It says that this version is set, like his copy doesn't have a title screen. It had some weird startup issues. Mine doesn't. Mine actually has a title screen with animations and the whole bit. It said it was by Larry Banks. Now, Larry's more famous for doing educational software on the CoCo. He did some stuff. We did some stuff that Tandy sold. They did some stuff that some of the third-party educational titles that were fairly big on cross-platforms did, like The Pond and stuff. Like he helped write some of those. So he was a capable programmer in his own right. I don't know if he actually is the one that did this, because that means he reskinned somebody else's game and then tried to make money off of it. And I just don't see somebody doing educational software as being that much of a blatant pirate. And then try to soak money off of it too. So I'm suspecting it might have been done somebody else, and they just threw the guy's name in as a copy hack type thing.
Right. Fake legitimacy.
Yeah. Like this part here. This is where I had Snack Pack by Larry Banks, copyright 92, Atomic Software with a rotating marquee. And he just got a white screen, so I don't know where he got his copy from. But if you guys are familiar with Pac Attack, or you can take a look at my site if you want to, the maze is absolutely identical. And then the sound effects, which I'll let play in a little bit here, are absolutely identical. The only real difference besides going to P Mode 4 instead of SemiGraphics 24, is that the fruits actually change, because the original pack deck just had one apple with a bite out of it. You red and yellow, I think, if I remember, red for the apple and yellow for the stem or something like that. This one actually rotates through different ones. Like the second one after the apple is a birthday cake. So they actually did do a little bit of additions to it. But otherwise, it's like, if you're familiar with pack tack, the sound effects are pretty unique, and you'll definitely recognize it.
It's like an upgraded version of Pack Tack that we've already played. It actually resembles Pac-Man too. Let's go ahead and pick up our power pellet. Oh, and they turn to sad faces. Cool sound effect.
So did you guys hear that wee type thing? That's Pack Tack.
Power pellet doesn't
Exactly.
last too long though. I'm gonna have to save it till the end.
So yeah, I'd like to get the full story behind where this came from and who sold it to Tom Mix, and how the negotiations between Computerware and Tom Mix happened after that. Because that'd make a fascinating interview, I think. All right, that's the CoCo games he covered. There's still a few more coming this next week to finish out September, because now he's roughly going alphabetical. He's in the S's now. There's some more CoCo games for 82 that will be coming out on there. I think I actually have a list. I don't know exactly what days they will be on in particular, but he should still be seeing wildcatting, tennis. He might mention Wet T-shirt Contest, which is a risque text adventure. He did mention Madame Rosa's Massage Parlor, which is another one that was on the Tier C Model 1-3 in the CoCo, but he doesn't play adult games on his channel, so he just mentioned it kind of in passing. And then that'll be the rest of the ones for the CoCo for September. And then in October, which should be coming up over later in February, we'll see the games like Colorpede and Protectors from Tom Mix, and Rail Runner and Donkey Monkey and Starfire, and a few others there too. So some pretty cool games coming up. And to round out the game on news, we've got a couple from Jim Gary. I know I'm just as surprised as the rest of you that he converted some stuff to the MC10 this week. Wow, who would have thought? But he did some pretty interesting ones this time. And the first one here that you're seeing on the screen at the moment, I'm not going to try to pronounce the French part. Frederic, if you're here, if you can read that and pronounce it in proper French, feel free.
Sure. I'm looking at the screen, but
this part over here.
Oh, okay. Casse-tête dans le métro, puzzle in the okay. It's a puzzle in the metro. It says right there, and it's after the slash.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering how to pronounce with all these little
casse-tête.
Okay, because when you start putting e's with funny accents and stuff, I have no idea how to say those.
Instead of métro, c'est métro.
The métro. Okay. So this is actually a low-res graphical adventure text game. So you can see an actual little sample here. You can see like little buildings and stuff like that. A little person sitting there, which they describe in the text areas. There's a man sitting in a booth. So it's actually kind of, almost like a Sands of Egypt style game, but in low res and for the MC10. Now, this one was originally written in 1985 by Eric Asheberg for the Metro Alice 32 and 90. And then Jim ported it over, translated it from French to English, and it actually looks like a pretty decent little game. It's got some pure text parts here that you get into, and then it'll actually skip to some different graphics. Let me see if I can find another one where he loads in the screen originally. You get people you can interact with too, which I can see if I can find. There's a little classroom type thing. So you have a few characters to interact with too. So I thought that was kind of a neat way to use the semi-graphics that are built in the MC10, without needing extra cards and updated ROMs, etc. And this would have been a fun one to play back in the day on an MC10 too. And then the second one he ported this week. Sorry, go ahead.
Looked like a Lego person.
Yeah. The second one he got here is a German game, and this is actually a German board game originally, known as Ludo. And this is another one he had to port and translate from German to English. This original version was in German. And it translates to, "Hey man, don't get angry." And it's, I'm not sure what the game exactly is. But this was originally actually published for the Laser Dick Smith VZ or VZ VZ200 computer in 1988, so fairly late on the VZ100s, or VZ200. But the VZ200, if I remember, that's one of the ones I think that used the same VDG chip as the CoCo, but it was a Z80, Z80 based CPU versus the 6800 series. And basically, you roll dice, you do your moves. It's got a little, picture of the dice here. It's got a little picture of the board, and then you kind of jump the pegs and go around and try. I don't really understand the game, so I'm not exactly sure what your mission is here, but apparently it's fairly popular in Germany. And that ends the Game On news. So on to the regular news. I don't know if you want to play the flaming hair bit first, Mark.
Yeah, sure. Let me get back over to my control panel and push this button.
When you want the latest in TRS-80, Tandy, Dragon, MC-10, and all of their hardware cousins, no matter what it takes, or where news breaks, from around the world to your nation. The CoCoNation News with L Curtis Boyle.
Okay, so Retro Computing Roundtable, and unfortunately I missed this one in person because I usually try to catch their show because it's usually once every few weeks or a month or something. It's kind of at random when everybody can actually make it. But they were covering a story here about a person that's doing a kind of like Frederic's doing, actually making their own computer, basically. And the person here was trying to do a 6502 homebrew project. And the ultimate goal they wanted to do is to make a 6502 machine that would actually play Lode Runner, which is, of course, originally an Apple II game. And the method they went to get source code for Lode Runner in order to port it to this with the hardware that he included on this machine actually has an involvement with the CoCo 3. Now, if you guys remember a few years back, or maybe even longer than that now, there was a transcode of the Apple II version of Lode Runner done by an Australian programmer, Mark McDougall, I think his name is.
Right.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Which is, like any of the other transcodes, it plays identical to the Apple version because it's actually the Apple source code translated from 652 to 679. So he was trying to find source code for Lode Runner itself, and he couldn't find for the 652 the original version for the Apple, etc. So he actually found Mark's and then transcoded it back to the 6502 for his own project, which is one of the most convoluted routes I've ever seen for doing a port of something to its, original CPU. So I'll play a little bit of that, just going to get a bit of history around it. But
so this is one that came across my feed from a fellow named Eric Badger, and on the stream here we have a video of it that I'll scrub through and show you some highlights. But so what I love about this is that this project could be possibly called Chips to Lode Runner, because he starts with building a breadboard 6502 based computer, as many of us do, and he ends up with something that plays Lode Runner, which is a pretty amazing journey. And the other thing I love about this is that it's very it's very brand agnostic, let's say. He actually brings in a lot of stuff from different retro computers to make this work. So he starts with a Ben Eater 6502 breadboard computer kit, which is a good excuse to talk about Ben Eater's kits because they're awesome. So he has a kit where you can build a 6502 computer on a breadboard, and what you end up with is the most minimal 6502 computer that everyone builds to start with, which has RAM and a little bit of ROM and a little LCD display and a serial port, and you can just kind of watch it execute code and display memory addresses or whatever, but that's all it'll do. So he starts with that, and then he upgrades it with a more modern interface chip. As many people probably know, you can still buy 6502s from Western Design Center, and they have more modern interface chips that you can connect to it, more modern than the 6551 was that the chip that gave you sort of basic IO on the 6502. There are more modern versions of that chip that give you more sophisticated IO, and he used that to get serial port going. And from there, he actually brought in WAS's monitor from the Apple II. So there's a block of code called WASMon, which is a 256-byte block, which basically implements WAS's raw monitor in a very, very compact way. So that allows you to display memory and read and write memory over the serial port. So that's super useful. And then from there, he added BASIC. And so BASIC, for that, he went to, well, it's a little side quest into video here, but for the BASIC, he went to Microsoft BASIC, and he ended up implementing what is ultimately a version of the PET BASIC. That seemed to be the easiest one to port in his efforts. So he gets PET BASIC in there, and from there he wants to get LoadRunner working. So there's a bunch of stuff about trying to get video going. And as anyone who's ever built a retro computer knows, getting video going is, of course, the most difficult part. So there's a lot of conversation in this video about the challenges of getting the CPU and the video scanner to talk to the same memory at the same time. That's certainly the thing that derailed me on my homebrew computer for a couple of years, actually, was figuring out good ways to do that. It turns out to be quite difficult. So he battles with that. And when it comes time to finally port LoadRunner, again, he goes through and looks at all of the different implementations of LoadRunner. It existed on many, many platforms. And he ends up landing on a CoCo 3 port of it. Someone ported the original Apple II LoadRunner to the CoCo 3 and had all of the source code for that. And so he ported, he started with the CoCo 3 6502 port and ported it to his machine, and does eventually get it running. And anyway,
that's got to be the most convoluted thing, because it was originally written in 6502. Couldn't find source code for that, so he found the 609 transcode and then transcoded it back to 6502 again. That's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, that must be a hard thing to do. I mean, if he used all those nifty little instructions and registers, going back to the 6502 is going to be a nightmare.
Well, yeah, because the Indian changes, so everything flips.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't looked at Mark McDougall's code, which is available on the web, by the way, if people want to take a look at it. But I don't know if he did a strict transcode where basically you just translated the instructions verbatim, like the Rescue and Fractals game did. It didn't use any of the more advanced features that you could have used to make it, run more efficiently or take less RAM or run faster, or whatever. So if he just did a strict transcode, then it wouldn't be that hard going back. But if he did a transcode and improved upon, then yeah, you're right. That would be a bear's butt going the other direction. Because you have extra registers and 16-bit registers and stuff that you don't have on the 6502.
You have to crunch back out again. Yeah.
Yeah. But, beggars can't be choosers. That was the only source code he could actually find based on the original, and he got it to work. This project took a while, but he did do it. I just thought it was fascinating just going back through two different transcodes to get it back to the original CPU. I've never heard of that happening before, so that was cool. And a big shout out to Mark, because he did a really good job on the LoadRunner transcode. We normally think of transcodes of being all the arcade stuff, like Donkey Kong by Sockmaster and Glen Hewlett, of course, has done Joust and Robotron Defender, but it's all been arcade stuff. We kind of forget sometimes that people have transcoded from other computer platforms as opposed to arcade games or video game consoles. So this is one of those cases where it's transcoded right from a 6502 Apple II code right to the 6809, and then in this case back again. Speaking of Glen Hewlett, he published a web blog, and this is the first time he's published one in a while here, but he was going through doing game sprite detection in assembly, and he discovered some really cool routines, he thought, in the way that Robotron did it. And he kind of discovered this while transcoding, but he decided to write up an article on it. Now, I'm not going to get completely in the weeds here about what it's describing, but basically, most of the time, if you want to do fast, you just check for a bounding box. You basically check the rectangle of the graphics, whether the graphics at a particular corner is active or not, which is why sometimes hitboxes on games suck. If you want to do it pixel by pixel, you can do that too, where you can actually check to see if certain pixels are crossing over and if the right colors to count as a crossover. But then, of course, that's much slower. So what he does here, going through the Robotron code, it's kind of using a combination of both. It tests to see if the bounding boxes of each sprite are overlapping on the screen, first of all. And if it doesn't, well, then I can skip all the bit-by-bit comparisons. And then if it does, then you start going in the section at the top of the sprite and test to see if overlapping pixel sprite are on top of each other. So basically, he's combining the coarse version of it to do speed and skip all the ones that you don't have to bother testing for. And then you go in and start doing the fine detailed ones only if there's a good potential that those things are overlapping. So it doesn't take as much speed to as much time, CPU time, to actually do a proper check where you're doing a pixel by pixel based collision, so that you're not getting players mad at you because you got within 5 pixels of a completely blank spot of the sprite that actually isn't really touching your shape, but it says, nah, you hit it, you died. So basically, he goes in through a description here. He actually uses sample graphics from the Galaga, et cetera, here, and samples some like source code, including some little tables and stuff he set up. So if you want to kind of see a cool way to do it, and this is the way the Robotron arcade game did it itself, it's a pretty fascinating article. Ken, I'm going to mute this here. You did some digital archaeology on colored computer discs. So first of all, I guess, what is that and what did you find?
Well, that's just basically going through a bunch of discs and seeing if I can find any really cool stuff. So I just chose a few discs out of the, I don't know, maybe 175 CoCo discs that I have sitting behind me, and just started going through them. And I managed to shave everything down to a half-hour show, but I probably could have gone on for a couple hours on this. It would have been like the news, putting everybody to sleep, but
we live to serve.
Where'd you get all those discs?
They got donated to me by Sheldon McDonald back, through Curtis, actually.
Yeah.
The same guy that I got the Banker Board 256K CoCo 2 from. So, yeah, I tried to stick as much as I could to games that were on these discs. So
now, did you just go through a certain number of discs, or is that actually going through 170? You pared it down.
Oh God, no! I went through 5 discs. This I did. I got about 6.5 hours of footage out of going through 5 discs. So I figured that was enough.
So do you plan on finishing going through those discs, or are you had enough digital archaeology for your lifetime?
No, I'll probably go through a bunch more, but it's very time consuming, obviously, because you're loading up each and every program on there. And
now you did find a couple of games you had not seen before, or didn't think you'd seen before, and then you also found a few that looked like, as you put it, they might have been converted from something else and were still running at 40 column or 80 column or something. Now I do. Oh, go ahead.
Well, there's a whole bunch of text games on, or basic games on here that are all from this 101 games book, which I think all of the changeovers on them are for the Model 1 and 3. Because the Model 1 and 3, correct me if I'm wrong, has a much larger screen.
Well, so even 80 columns, you can't do print at like you can on a Model 3.
Yeah, so these are meant for an 80 column, 32 row screen or whatever. So
yeah. Now there's 2 possibilities here for me knowing Sheldon. First of all, he started on Tier City Model 1. He still
actually
has that,
Sheldon did comment on the video, and he said, yeah, that was probably what he was doing. He typed all these in and had intended to port them over, but was never got around to it.
Well, I'm not so sure on that. He had one program on there you tried to load it to. It was called WP.
Yeah.
There was some high-res screen drivers that you could buy. So there's like Screen 64s, Super Screen Machine. There's a whole bunch. There's the Solution. There's dozens of them. Some of those did patch BASIC to accept print ats up to whatever screen resolution their graphic screen did. So a lot of them did 42 by 21. Some did 51 by 24. The one from Intellectronics went to 64 by 32. Some of them did, they added new commands like a locate, X, Y, kind of like the CoCo 3 did. But some of them actually did patch print at to work up to like 0 to 10, 12, 24 or something. And that WP program might have been one of those meant for 64K machine. And what most 64K programs like that did was they load themselves at the absolute highest part of RAM. Now on a CoCo 3, that's vector page RAM. That's how BASIC actually figures out how to switch between high-res screens and 40 and 80 columns and stuff. And if you overload that, you've basically just crashed BASIC completely.
Okay, so you're saying that I should try that on one of my CoCo 2s?
Yes. The WP program itself might run then, and if it is one of those drivers for that, then it should actually put itself up at the top of RAM, kick the CoCo into a PMode 4 screen with its own font, and then the print ats will actually run, I think. So we were trying. If it doesn't work, I will try to figure out which one of the screen drivers actually supported print at extensions, because not all did. Some did locate instead, but some did do it. I've actually fiddled with them back over the years, so you probably could get those running properly.
Okay. Well, as Sheldon said, he didn't remember. He remembered that he had typed all those games in, but didn't remember what he did with them.
Yeah. I just found it suspicious because the disc that you found that particular text adventure games or text games on did have that same WP program, and it did crash. And I was going, I bet you that's probably
okay. What's going on?
And then you did find a couple games, but I think they're all basic. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I did find a blackjack game, or not a blackjack game, a Jacks Are Better game that Sheldon had written. Then that space game that was just on the screen, which I'd never seen before, which looks like somebody had tried to make it as a commercial game because it's got the whole intro screen and song, and then distribution name by the company that made it. And
okay, so I'll have to see if I can hunt that one down. So that one's on my site. I'd never seen it before either.
No, it's not on the archive. It's not on your site, so I've never seen it before. Cool. But it is just a basic game.
Yeah. I will mention that Sheldon, I did briefly go through those discs before I gave them to you, but I was looking specifically for machine language games that might have been missing from the archives and from my own collection. And I did find a few. Brit Monk's Avalon Hill game Gauntlet, the 4K, one of the very few 4K machine language games, was actually one of the ones that Sheldon had that I'd never had before, and actually is now on the archive, now on my site. So big thank you to Sheldon for that one. If you're going to try to run that one, you definitely will have to run ROM-L, though, because it'll load it right over top disk, unless you want to copy it to cassette first.
Okay.
Quest 3, I think that one IO aired. Isn't this the disc that had the IO airs? Because that was one that actually I have seen ads for, but I don't have the game. So,
unfortunately, that disc would not load anything that was larger than a one-sector game. Any of the games that were larger, it would IO air.
Okay. If I can make a request, if you can bring a couple of the discs that look like they have something interesting but do get the IO airs, if you can bring them down to the fest, and then we'll get David to bring the Grease Weasel again.
Okay, sure.
We'll see if we can actually read them off. What was that?
Oh, I was just being a smart butt. I was just saying, oh, sure, bring me into this again.
Absolutely, it's a floppy disk. What do you expect?
Yeah, what do you expect here? You're our local resident expert on floppy disks.
Right. You need to know how to plan your time at the fest.
Well, David could just send me a Grease Weasel.
Yeah, that would work too, right?
Oh yeah, and a David Ladd brain, and then you'll have it made.
Anyway, I think it'd be good because it would be nice to try to recover.
It was actually only the one game, the one
disc so far.
Disc that I found that was giving me the IO errors. So
yeah, because it would be interesting to see Quest 3. There was a sequel to Quest that Everett put out for 32K machine specifically that I do not have a copy of. I have the original one, but I don't have the revised one. But apparently they added a whole bunch of stuff to it from the ads.
And then one of the things that I really liked that I found was that 3D disc that had a whole bunch of 3D graphics. That's just I don't know what that was. It's loaded up a different a red screen to take the place of the green screen. So
yeah, I think for black and white TV users it actually worked better.
Although it changed a bit. Like it changed the top of the screen, what it said, and it changed the cursor input thing.
Okay. Yeah, this 3D thing, this was a version I'd not seen before. I have seen the one that Hot Cocoa published, I think, in their 3rd or 4th issue called Display. And you can just find up to 26 points and then 26 connecting lines in X, Y, Z space. And then you can pan them left and right, up, down. You can rotate them on all 3 axes. You can zoom them in and out. And then you can create stuff like this. The only game I remember on the CoCo that actually used this type of an engine, I think, was Space Wreck by Spectrum, which is kind of a clone of the Star Trek Simulator arcade game.
Well, basically all of the programs that I found on this disc say that they're from the Durham Computer Club.
So Durham, Ontario?
I have no idea.
And I was curious, like obviously these are running, fairly complex ones that are running pretty slow. Did you try running this at the CoCo 3 double speed?
No, I did not.
Because I think it would probably run a lot smoother that way. And then I'll try it on the Gimme X with triple speed. Anyway, go check out Ken's video. He's got a cool explanation of what digital archaeology is, and then kind of live demoing it. And then it's just fun if you picked up a disc collection at an auction, or like say the one at CoCo Fest, and there will be some discs on there. Or pick it up in an estate sale, or just from a collector that you've met online or through eBay or whatever. It's kind of fun going through some of the discs. Sometimes you find absolute gems you've never heard of before.
And sometimes you find some really weird stuff.
Well, true. And probably some stuff you wish you could scratch your eyeballs out and never see again.
Right, never see again.
Okay, next up, the 13th edition of the Basic 10-Liner Contest was announced this past week. And it's got, of course, the multiple subcategories. And this is for you basic programmers out there. They've got the... This is the translation. The actual main thing is run by a guy in Germany, so the initial instructions are all in German, and then he kind of translates it to English here. So you've got the Pure 80, which means a maximum of 80 characters per line. The Pure 120, maximum 120 characters per line. The Extreme 256, no more than 256 characters per line. And then Shao, which is, what's the difference there? It's 256 per line. Oh, it can be a demo, a tool, or an application, as opposed to a game. The first three categories are for games. And this has been a fairly successful, and this is run cross-platform. I know Jim Gary has submitted to these in the past. 48K RAM on the Amigos Discord is actually usually one of the judges on this. So if you submit a game, he'll probably be checking it out. It happens to be some of the ones he gets a chance to try. So anyway, the deadline for submissions is Saturday, March the 16th of this year, and the awards ceremony is on April the 6th. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you're a basic programmer, I know a lot of people kind of go, basics more their bag, and they just, aren't going to learn assembly because it's too complex or whatever. If you want to show off your basic skills, it's a great little contest, and it's not that big of a program you have to write either. So, and the various categories depending on the max line length. Details you can find, of course, by clicking the link in our Discord show notes. EJAQA, I should say, excuse me, has uploaded another update to VCC, so 2.1.8.3. So he's added a few things to this one here, and I actually got the notes on his GitHub, which of course you can go straight to download here. But the entire user's guide has been kind of rewritten, and there's a web link built into the menu in the VCC emulator itself. So if you don't remember where to go to find it, you can just click that and bang, you go off and you can read the full online manual, basically. He's got corrected ROMs for HTTP DOS LBA and instructions for using Super IDE, which is kind of, I think Cloud9 did the Super IDE, and that was based on the Glen side IDE. So it's for interfacing, IDE hard drives, etc. He added a hard disk config for disabling the real-time clock. Why would you ever want to do that? He added instruction to code to the debugger process window, added disassembler window, command line auto paste. He fixed a long-standing bug for blinking text on the 40 and 80 column screens for the CoCo 3. And the user guide has been substantially updated. So thanks, EJ, for continuing on with this project here. I know you're not the original author, but it kind of got dropped and you kind of picked it up and you fixed a lot of bugs and added a lot of features, including the debugger and stuff here the last couple of years. Please keep up the great work. Okay, next up, an update on a rival project to Frederic's for building a 609 homebrew. He's actually gotten to the point now where he's loading floppy disk images from the SD interface on his. He says he's using mostly unchanged code from the Z80 MBC2 project. I'm not familiar with that. Maybe Frederic is.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Originally, that one was written by Fabio De Fabis.
Yeah, I have one.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, he's progressing. He also made a simple program in CMOC, which of course is a C-like, not entirely pristine C, but C-like language that has been used for multiple CoCo projects and is capable of creating assembly language runnable binary files for both OS 9 and for regular disk basic. And that is another project that gets updated fairly regularly too. So cool to see he's got that working here. and it goes into a bit of a description of that. Now, he kind of blogs these updates here. I think he's on Hackaday too, if I remember correctly. Do you do a Hackaday as well, or are you just doing the YouTube thing, Frederic?
Just YouTube for now.
Okay. Will you have a GitHub, etc., for it later on, or?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. Next up, and this is for David Ladd. I specifically put this one in here. David, first of all, are you still active on Facebook at all, or no?
Not very often.
Because there's David Graham, he's one of the guys that actually helped with some of the MM1 manufacturing, wasn't he?
I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Okay.
So.
But he put up a README here. So it's basically talking about MM1 schematics. Now, I've actually loaded the PDF here. You can go download it from the MM1 group and Facebook if you want. But about schematics. So there's some schematics that were gotten from the original manufacturers, from IMS, et cetera, for the MM1. And what David has gone through in here is mentioning is some of the differences between what's on the schematics and what they really sold as manufactured hardware. He said the CPU board schematics in particular do not represent a perfect match to any known board released to the public. The VSE chip used in this set is the 470B, which was a development version of the chip, which was never widely released. The pinout is different from the final release version, which has 4 less pins. While much of the information is applicable to the version 1.1 plus CPU board, some of it is clearly not. The sound header, for example, is identified as P3, later used to ID the front panel reset button connector. These files are also pretty fuzzy, making them quite difficult to read at times. And then it goes through some more descriptions of what's different or corrections that are needed, going through the different versions of the IO board, et cetera. So it sounds like he's gone through fairly extensively and figured out what out of the publicly available schematics is right, what is wrong, and eventually, is going to try to make a fixed up version that actually reflects the hardware as it was sold. Now, David, have you been doing anything based on the schematics here that you've hit this problem too, where the schematics just don't match the actual hardware? Or have you done much of this yet?
No, the only thing I've ever had to do to my MM1 was replace the Dallas real-time clock module, because it's one of those 1287 style chips where, the battery and everything.
Just building the chip.
Yeah. And for some reason, the MM1 didn't want to boot once that went dead, so I had to buy a new one. Then I had to use a PC to initialize the chip. Then I had to stick it in the MM1, and then after that, it was fine. But that was back when I had a working hard drive. At the moment, I don't have a working hard drive in my MM1, but I eventually plan on, getting one of my SCSI to SD boards working in my MM1. It's just.
Have you considered the Blue SCSI? Because Joel Evie got one of those from Joe's Computer Museum, and actually he's already got it up and running. He backed up his entire SCSI drive from his original M1, which is flaky. Backed it up on there, and it's running perfectly fine.
Yeah, well, my hard drive is long gone. Though I used a zip 250 to make a, when the hard drive was working, I made a backup back then. And then, of course, I used a Linux machine to then make a DD image of it. But I plan on using that with how the SCSI to SD works.
Okay, because it sounds like Joe's quite pleased with the Blue SCSI in his. Like it runs faster, obviously. He backed up his entire drive, including the boots and everything else, and he's totally booting off the hard drive now.
Yeah.
I want to point out,
and strangely enough, the Blue SCSI, from what I was looking at, uses the exact same development board that the first release of the Grease Weasel used, the Blue Pill.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. So I got to find one of them for my Delmar.
So yeah, and you probably should use that Blinky test firmware from the Grease Weasel project to test to make sure that the microcontroller is fake.
I also noticed on this document, just earlier in this page, it says if you do this, the cable will melt from the CPU out. That's a good thing to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had that issue with SCSI cables. I had I bought a cable that had a manufacturing defect, and when I hooked up the drives and turned them on, the voltage went someplace it wasn't supposed to, and you could smell burning wiring.
We'll melt the cable from the CPU board out. An impressive effect, but undesirable. I must agree.
That's in a quote right from the document too. Yeah. Once again, this is why I stick with software, not hardware. Anyway, for any of you MM1 owners out there, then I would definitely go check this document because it will warn you about stuff like that. Now, Henry unfortunately had to leave here, but he got his next one. He's kind of writing a brand new ROM for the CoCo 2 that will become a fourth interpreter operating system, basically. And he's been doing the very low-level stuff. So in this particular episode here, which took quite a while to record, he basically gets the keyboard driver working properly, tied to the screen driver with screen scrolling, etc. And I won't play it here because it's an hour long, but if you want to see like the entire process and him thinking out loud of how to get everything to work and how to work things like shift keys and how to convert things from ASCII to what the VDG wants to see as far as a character code goes, etc. How to read the keyboard matrix on the PIA, etc. It's very informational. If you want to do low-level driver type stuff, even if it's not fourth relay, because he hasn't got to the fourth part yet, this is actually really excellent stuff. I would pair this up with CoCo Town and what he's been doing with a lot of the graphic stuff too. The two of them combined here, you're learning a lot about how to program the CoCo specifically, including the PIAs and the VDG and the SAM and everything else. So really, really well done series for both of them. Next up, YouTube channel called Bolling Holt, which I've never heard of before. Released a video called Reliving My 1991 10th Birthday with a Tandy DMP 133, which is a printer, which he got at the age of 10 to use with his CoCo 2. Now, unfortunately, like he's got a CoCo 3 now, and he picked up a CoCo 2 recently on eBay. And he was going to go try to hook it up to the printer and try to relive his childhood of actually controlling this printer. It's one of the later ones that's still at a serial port from Tandy. Unfortunately, he could not find his serial cable, so he ended up demoing it on a Tandy 1000 using DeskMate instead. But he goes through a little bit of his history with the CoCo 2 and 3 at the beginning of the video. I won't play it here, but if you guys want to check it out, you can get the show link from the show notes. Next up, I'm hoping maybe Frederic or somebody might be a bit more familiar with this too. So the 6502 show is making a compact flash card drive file system for his HM68 computer, which is a 68OX type machine. But it should work with any 6502 or 6800, 01, 03, 02, 09, etc. base machine. It's basically compatible with all of them for using compact flash instead of the SD cards.
Yeah,
But that
compact
Cisco,
flash is pretty much pin-to-pin compatible to the bus.
but that Cisco Systems compact flash is more valuable than MUR. It had some number in it. You had to, if you had a Cisco switch, you had to have that compact flash thing. So how did it end up here?
Well, one thing he does mention during the video, and like I said, I won't play it here because it's 24 minutes long. He does mention that he was originally planning on actually trying to port Flex to this for the 6800 or the 6809. And then he said that was a bit too complicated. So then he used another one. I can't remember who made it. I didn't record in the notes here, but if you listen to the video, you'll be able to hear it. But he used a very, very simple thing that's basically almost raw sector based with a catalog track that points to what track each program's on. And if I understand it correctly, each track can only hold one program. It's very, very simple. He figured since you got a compact flash, you got 64 meg, or whatever card on here, you don't really need to worry about space all that much. But he got it up and running, so it's an interesting way of doing some very low level stuff and getting a compact flash hooked up to pretty well any 6502 or 68OX base system, which is cool. Next up, Terror City Retro Programming did a couple of videos here working on his CoCo Ultimate game. The first one here, the long one, I won't play too much of it. But basically, he's trying to figure out how to line up the characters so that they fit space, and he's actually drawn a grid on the screen. We used to do this in graph paper to design, how characters would fit, especially when you got characters in this case like his warrior and his wizard are different heights, etc. But putting the grid on the screen visually actually makes it quite easy to see, is this actually moving the rate I want it to? is it going to end up, on a nice even boundary when it gets to the far right side or going up and down or whatever type thing. And I've actually used this technique myself sometimes, rather than trying to do it all in graph paper or math calculations to figure out what pixel line up I'm trying to get it consistently going across the screen. I'll just draw the lines and then you can just see visually, I need to shift it 2 pixels. Actually saved me some time. So I thought it's pretty interesting. And he stumbled across that same technique. And then this one here, he's done some optimizations here. And now, if you guys remember, I think it was last week, the week before, we played a little bit of his video and kind of showing it. He's using draw statements to both erase and draw the characters. With all the optimizations, though, he's done, it's actually running much, much faster and not blinking as much. So I thought I'd just play a little bit of that so you can see the speed improvement, if you remember what last week's was like. I mean, it still blinks a little bit, but it was going like literally maybe a quarter of the speed last time.
Right.
And he's got a little auto follow, so the warrior's always the lead guy, and the wizard kind of falls behind because he's, as you discovered, Middle Kingdom pretty weak and gets pummeled on all the time. So you got to kind of guard him in the back. Next up, Alan Huffman has done a blog entry post based on a game that Rick, I don't think, is released yet, called Lights Out Puzzle. Now, if you guys from the late 70s, early 80s remember the old Simon game, the thing that looked like a big red, no, not Simon, Merlin. It looked like a big red telephone, chunky thing. It had a grid of 3x3 lights on it that you'd press, and they had certain different games built in. Well, this is based out on one of those games where basically if you press, it's almost like the Game of Life type thing, except just actually a game instead of a simulation. If you press any one of those things, any light that is surrounding it that was on goes off and vice versa. And basically you're trying to turn all the lights on or turn all the lights off, depending on the game version, based on what some values that they were set originally. And this is using a larger grid here, using a 5x5, and there's various versions of this, and very electronic games have done it. So Alan is going to try to kind of make that himself too, to figure out how to do it. You can see a screenshot here from Rick Adams' version for the CoCo 3. And the nice thing about this is Alan went, as usually he does a deep dive into the weeds here to figure out, how did this whole game concept come out? So he's going back and looking at some, sample stuff like the Tiger Electronics game that kind of did the same thing back in '95, going into the intricate details of how that worked. And then there's the Vulcan Electronics one here. Back to the 70s, here's the Merlin one that actually I've played this on.
Same.
And, he's talking about the different sizes. The Merlin did a 3x3 grid, for example. The CoCo one is doing a 5x5. So he's going to try to implement this in color basic, not extended basic. So I'm assuming he's going to try to do a low-res version capable of running on the CoCo 1 and 2 as well. So interesting to see where he goes with that. And also, I didn't know Rick was even working on this as a basic program. The last one I saw him do was Cocodle, or the Wordle clone. So it means another one I have to port to Nitrous 9. Speaking of porting Nitrous 9, so if you guys remember, or you guys were on Facebook last week or last couple weeks, some people, I think it was Carlos Camacho, initially posted about it, but the BBC Micro had done a ray tracing demo with reflections and everything else. And Carlos had mentioned, we should do this on the CoCo. And Alan had actually done a blog post last week trying to get it run. His first pass didn't work because the BBC Micro Basics a little bit different, especially with dealing with logarithmic functions. Stephen Goodwin in the Dragon Group, on the other hand, actually got it basically done, though his dithering here, he was kind of confused, like it kind of got corrupted on this one ball. He did figure out later, though, what was wrong, and he fixed it. So you can see the fixed one there. But you can see he's actually done it both with the crosshatch technique of giving shading versus pure 4 colors. And he's doing this in P mode 3, so it's 128 by 192. And he even did a low res version, 64 by 32 for the text, semi-graphics 4 screen. And has converted over. And he actually posted the source code for me. And when I get done with my rush season at work here in a few weeks, I'm going to take a stab at porting it to Basic 09 and just see how much of a speed difference, because these things take hours and hours to run. So I would not recommend doing it on real hardware unless you're really, really bored. That makes our news segments look short. But basically, if you overclock it on an emulator, you can actually get the results fairly quick. And I know people have done these before, like Von Cato wrote a few back in the late 80s for the CoCo 3. But he would just save them as high-res images once they're done, because you don't want to sit there for hours or days doing it. There's a ray trace bouncing ball demo on the Nitrous 9 Ease of Use that actually has 9 frames of animation that it was pre-rendered, but it took days to do that too. So we'll see how that goes. Julian Brown has got an update. So he's one who's kind of doing a CoCo VGA style thing for the Dragon, which is basically an FPGA board to replace the 6847. The initial thing is to get it running properly, but maybe expanding what kind of outputs it can go to, so you're not restricted to composite or RF. But to do more modern interfaces. And then, of course, to do the same thing that Brendan did with the CoCo VGA is to add extra functionality, a wider palette, redefinable character sets, etc. I don't know if he's going to go as far as Brendan did with the 64x32 text screen with true upper and lowercase, which is actually one of my favorite features of the CoCo VGA, but definitely nothing stopping him. But he got his first run of boards here to try, and he's been actually doing a couple updates on soldering all the chips and stuff on there. You hardware guys have way more patience than me. That's all I can say. Next up, Ciaran. I don't know if he's still awake and in the chat here, but he released a couple of upgrades to XROAR. So we had originally posted the XROAR 1.5, where he fixed a bunch of gimme problems and a bunch of other things too. But then he had 2 bug fixes that were released this week. So 151 included a cartridge database, mostly to handle the CoCo 3 32K ones, because they have to do that 16K ROM flip to be backwards compatible. So what's early in the ROM actually shows up later in the actual ROM type thing. He fixed a potential crash when cartridge loading fails, and he recognized Windows drive letter : as paths, because of course he's a Linux guy usually, and he didn't have anything in there. It actually didn't run properly in Windows. And then 1.52, with the help of Tim Linder, he did some gimme timer interrupt fixes. I think he had some issues with certain programs that were using very tight timing requirements off the gimme programmable interrupt timer that were not operating correctly. So that should be fixed now too. If he's still in the chat, he can comment more on this. I haven't had a chance to try.
I submitted another bug request for him just last night here. My latest game doesn't work in it. So I think it's something to do with it not being able to support the 128 by 200.
Oh, some of the odder resolutions?
Yeah, I think it's, I'm not sure. But anyway, there is still another bug there. And I submitted it to him last night.
Okay. Well, he's obviously fairly quick at doing this because he released 2 updates here in 7 days.
Yeah,
so.
There'll be another one soon.
He's probably working on it right now. That's why he's not answering the chat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And the final one here, this is a German YouTube channel, and it's called Home for Obsolete Technology. And he picked up a huge retro haul. This is part 2. So he's had another episode with completely different stuff in it. And he's got a ton of electronics. He's got like vacuum tubes and old transistors from the 50s and 60s and this all kinds of stuff from an estate sale. But he also picked up 4 dragons in it. And in Germany, the dragon was pretty rare from what he's saying in the video here. And one of them is fairly heavily modded. So I thought I would play the little clip about the dragons here, and you guys can see the modded one. Now, he does kind of explain what he thinks it is, and from looking at it, I agree with him. But I was just wondering if Ciaran has seen anything like that.
About what the good friend of me actually got, because he was also very lucky. And yeah, one of those things is right in front of me. This one, most of you might not know what that is, which is definitely not surprising. This is a Dragon 32, which is a computer manufactured in Wales in the early 80s, if I remember it correctly. Those are very, very rare, and yeah, finding one in Germany is like winning the lottery, basically. And what can I say? We found just 4 of them. I'm not lying. I will show you a photo. Sadly, there is no enough space to show all 4 of them, but I will make a photo showing all 4. And this is just unbelievable rare. This is one of them. And then this is another one. This is in a little bit worse shape, but we can actually see he used this one. He added this power supply, or just for 5 volts and ground. I think they are for into the device. Maybe this is to power the whole thing, because the Dragon uses a very weird power supply with a very weird connection. Or maybe this is just to power this additional board here. And most of the stuff is down here. And we are fairly sure he made this circuit board by himself. And as you see, there are 2 switches. One says off and on, and one says load and run, and we are fairly sure he used this to program ROMs on it and write it onto the chips. But that's not everything. We also...
Anyway, that was a pretty interesting. So the guy made essentially an EEPROM programmer, from what I can tell, and built it to mount right on top of the Dragon case, which is not something you see very often.
Yeah, I kind of thought that the Dragon 32 was actually quite common in Germany back when it came out, because I know they sold them in Germany.
Yeah, they sold CoCo 1s and 2s there too. Like I have heard some other, we actually got some people to watch the show that are from Germany that had them. So I don't know, maybe like from what I understood from talking to some of the people in Germany is that there were certain cities that sold them. And if you lived outside of those major metropolitan centers, you never saw them in a computer store. So maybe like if he's in a rural area or a smaller town, he may not have ever seen them there. I don't know.
Well, judging on this guy's hands, he looks like he's fairly young.
Yeah,
well, that too. But anyway, yeah, it was pretty interesting that he's very rarely seen when he gets 4, and then one's like heavily modded with a satellite board on the outside of the case with an EEPROM burner. So that was kind of weird.
Well, we know he's inexperienced. He's still using a wet sponge for a soldering iron, so.
You better go leave him a comment there, Rick.
You leave my sponges alone.
Must be Belletto. Must be Belletto.
All right,
Sponges
that's
are good.
That's the news for this week. Sponge cake's good. I'll say that.
Doesn't work with a soldering iron though.
I'd be too busy eating. I wouldn't even care about the soldering iron. That's hardware.
All right. Is that it for today?
I think so. How did we do in time there? Did we make it under your deadline?
Yeah, I get 10 minutes.
Okay, well, let's go for another 20 then.
All right.
But before we sign off, I just want to get an update because obviously Coconut Bob did start working on something because he's got it on his screen there. So just a quick, what are you working on there, Bob?
So yeah, I actually got my parts from DigiKey showed up while we're on the air here. But
cool.
This board is something that somebody gave me at the meetup last weekend. If you go to that website, you can see he's also got a link to a GitHub page on this board. This is like a universal USB to any given matrix style keyboard. He's got different ways to route these headers to match up to whatever machine you want to use it on, including a color computer. So
I was not aware of this. That actually sounds cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you can look up this website here. It's I can read it.
itdiscovery.info, it looks like.
Yeah.
/ retro KBD.
Yeah. He's got a few interesting projects on there, including he's built his own CoCo 2 motherboard. So some interesting stuff.
Geez, those are becoming as common as,
yeah, right.
Pepsi.
Who hasn't made their own 6809 board now?
Well, the CoCo 3 ones are a bit rare, I have to say.
Right.
But yeah, I just got the parts for this, including that little SOIC. So I'm gonna try my hand at soldering this all together, and maybe next week I'll have a USB keyboard interface.
You gonna live stream it this time, or are you gonna do it after the fact recording or anything?
I will at least record it, and I don't know, maybe I'll play the video and live stream that.
So I see it needs a bunch of chips.
Yeah, just a couple of 4051s and a 4066, and then
That
basically
SMT is
part
not
of
that
it-
bad. You'll live.
Yeah, that one's like the 0.5 millimeter.
I wouldn't.
pitch.
At least it's
that's-
not.
That's the main one, is the AVR 128 chip.
Looks like it has a
That's
decent
very
pitch you
good.
can work with.
Yeah.
that's not
I've done some 0.5 millimeter pitch. I can handle that. I think just do a drag soldering.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely am interested in this there. You can actually adapt keyboards to the CoCo. So, Nick, I just want to mention 60 in the chat mentioned, and Nick, some messages waiting for you on Discord about that, referring to the bug in the graphics mode.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready for the outro?
Yeah.
I
don't
think so.
skip hop on by Ron's garage and see if there's anything that interests you.
Actually, we should do a Ron's Garage segment next week since we don't have a guest.
I'll have some kind of content for you.
Okay.
This concludes another episode of the CoCoNation, the world's leading live interactive talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things the CoCoNation, visit us on the web at thecoconation.com. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to show@thecoconation.com. The CoCoNation show would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. The CoCoNation theme song, copyright 2022, D. Bruce Moore. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. The CoCoNation is over. Join us on the CoCo Discord server.
CoCo forever.
It's about
Okay.
9.
Till next week.
Yeah, actually, I got one brief announcement. We're planning on doing a follow-up on the deluxe CoCo, not next week, but the week after. Some of the things we've discovered, etc. And I'm not sure exactly. We're still working on stuff, and Brian's still trying to get it running stably, etc. But we'll have some updates, so be there for that show. That should be pretty interesting.
Okay, and Marco, any update or comments on the virtual CoCo Fest coming up?
I have a couple of people that are interested, but I haven't gotten confirmation times when they want to do it. And beyond that, no CoCo Tech stuff at the moment either.
Okay. All right. Well, bye.
Okay, bye.
See you next week.
Bye,
Bye, everybody.